Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is Ray again. Um, Tonight we will be covering Aurora, the Colorado theater shooting. We have 911 calls for the police station and fire and EMS. There is video of Aurora shooting witnesses. There is the video evaluation reveals the shooter's mindset during the attack, so like his psychiatric eval. And then we have photos of the theater. We have the video, the bomb squad released entering James Holmes' apartment. And then we have all the documents that are publicly available for the case. So there's his college application records, I guess. His notebook, his shooting charges, his Gmail transcripts, and then there's an exhibit document along with the after action report from the FBI. So I think we will start with the 911 calls and go from there. If you guys have any questions or anything, just drop them below. It's going to be kind of a long one tonight. I know that the 911 calls alone are probably like 55 minutes roughly. So we might not get through all of them, but we'll try to get through most of them.
Okay, unit sent by for tower. 315 and 314 for a shooting at Century Theaters, 14300 East Alameda Avenue. They're saying somebody's shooting in the auditorium. Units responding to the shooting, switch to or remain on channel 2. Channels back to normal. 315 and 314, there is at least one person that's been shot, but they're saying there's hundreds of people just running around.
Lincoln 25, send me a whole bunch of available cars, all three districts.
Copy, all available units respond to the theater. 316, okay.
Cruiser 11, I'll be out.
Cruiser 11, copy on scene.
2 and 3 are out.
Last unit on scene.
2 and 3 are out.
213, okay. Okay.
320 preempt as well.
All units, we're going to patch the channel for the shooting. All officers respond to the shooting, 14300 East Alameda Avenue.
Cruiser 11, I'll be out on the east side.
Somebody is still shooting inside theater number 9 per an employee.
Lincoln 25, give me cops on the back side of it also. 514, I need the ambulance at Expo and Stable. I need the ambulance at Expo and Stable.
514, copy. 514, copy.
Cruiser 25, I'm going to be out on foot on the Stable side of the theaters.
Cruiser 25, okay. And last unit, reference is semi-automatic. Try it again. You didn't come across.
King 6, I'm out.
King 6, okay.
316, I got people saying theater 9 still.
Yeah, all of our RPs are saying theater 9 where Batman was playing.
I'm not sure if that's where Batman was playing.
That's where they're saying it happened. Theater 9 where Batman was playing, but another RP is saying they're still shooting.
Cruiser 10, I'm inside. 216.
216?
453, I have a party shot here. I need rescue hot.
453, exactly where are you?
Front of theater.
In front of the theater.
16, give me some more cars inside of the theater, in front of theater 9.
Need more cars inside in front of theater 9.
316, be advised. 6 somebody sprayed some gas over here too.
316, I couldn't copy.
316, somebody's spraying gas in here too.
Copy, somebody's spraying gas.
316, I need a rescue in here hot too. I got a guy shot.
And inside of theater 9?
Just outside of theater 9.
Copy, just outside of theater 9.
316, send me another available officer in here.
Need more officers inside theater 9.
11, we got the back covered and the south side covered.
Team 6, we got another person outside shot in the leg, a female. I got people running out of the theater, they're shot in room 9.
Copy, we'll let rescue know. They'll start more people.
318, we also have another victim on the north side of the theater, the parking lot.
Copy, north side in the parking lot.
Do we have gas masks available? I need gas mask at 9, I can't get it at 9.
Any units that can bring gas masks to theater 9, again, we need gas masks.
Lincoln 25. I'm being told that he's in theater 9. From what I'm smelling inside, it sounds like it's OC maybe too. Get us some damn gas masks for theater 9. We can't get in it.
We're letting rescue know as well.
69 guys on the east side of block. East side. I need officers on the east side of block it. 302, I got an ML shot. I need rescue right in front of the theaters by Dillard's, right off the main road.
Copy, in front of Dillard's.
Cruiser 26, are we stationed rescue someplace? If not, I can take 70 seconds.
We'll find where they're going to be.
14, we have a party in the car shot. Plate 240, John Zebra, Ida. It's Kia, white Kia.
Okay, copy. There's another victim in a white Kia. Where's that vehicle at?
Lincoln 25, I need rescue to stage in the west parking lot. I need at least 3 or 4 ambulances brought in here. Everybody can stage in the west parking lot by the 16 Adam, I need a march car behind the theater, Sable side. Got a suspect in a gas mask.
209.
209, okay, and we need cars south side. Suspect in a gas mask.
Is that the dude in the white car you're by?
Cruiser 26, I'll have rescue on the north side of the
453, I have 3 parties shot over here. Okay, where's the rest going to be?
Just on the north side, I've got 2 victims up here with me right now.
The one I shot in the face. 11, hold the air 1 second. Cars with that white car in the rear of the lot. Is that a suspect? Yes, we got rifles, gas masks. He's detained right now. I've got an open door going into the theater. Okay, hold that position. Hold your suspect. Hold the air. Make an entry at 9. We need rescue inside the auditorium. Multiple victims.
Copy.
321, I'm on the southeast corner on the exit. I need more cars on the east end with me, please. Lincoln 25, let me have the air here a little bit. Lincoln 25, I need rescue to stage in the Dillard's lot. I need as many ambulances as we can to the Dillard's lot.
Copy. We'll have them stage at the Dillard's lot and send as many ambulances as possible.
I want my fire trucks there also, and I'll start bringing them in to triage people and get them out. I just need them to get ready and get litters to the front of Century 16, and we'll start getting people out.
Lincoln 25, copy.
302, I'm taking one male to the hospital in my car.
302, Adam, okay?
16, I got 7 down in Theater 9. 7 down.
Copy. We'll notify fire. 7 down in Theater 9.
Get me some officers in 9 so we can get the movable victims out.
Need more units in Theater 9.
620, I'm with fire now. Let me know when you're ready for them to come in. Lincoln 25, start me Denver cars this way too. I need more help.
We'll start Denver cars.
321, one of the shooters might be wearing a white and blue plaid shirt.
Copy. Outstanding. Shooter possibly wearing a white and blue plaid shirt.
I've got a child victim. I need rescue at the back door of Theater 9 now.
Back door of Theater 9. We'll start them.
Break Cruiser 49, I need a car at Sable.
Copy. Need a unit to respond to Sable as well.
Break Cruiser 49, correction, I need a car at Exposition and Abilene. Exposition and Abilene.
Lincoln 25, unpatch Channel 2 and Channel 3. Channel 2 will be inside, Channel 3 will be outside.
All units were unpatching Channel 2 and Channel 3. Channel 3 will be for all outside units. Channel 2 is inside units.
Lincoln 41 on Channel 3.
Lincoln 41, go ahead.
Yeah, would you make this a mutual aid, notify Arapahoe County? We'd like some cars for a perimeter around the scene.
You bet. I've got Denver coming in emergent. You want me to start Arapahoe County then as well?
Yeah, so we get the situation under control. Tell them right now we need a perimeter. Sable, Exposition, Abilene, and Alameda.
Okay.
Rescue into that old Sports Authority lot. We can evacuate some of these victims there. Dispatch, give me some ambulances on Sable. I want ambulances on Dillard's lot.
Copy. I'll let him know. Sable and Dillard's lot.
Suspect saying he's the only one, but I'm getting conflicting suspect description from the witnesses out here. Cruiser 11.
Cruiser 11.
11.
Cruiser 11, go ahead.
Inside of the theater is secure. We're bringing out bodies now. Get someone to the back as soon as you can. Rescue personnel. I got at least 3 to 7 hits.
Copy. We'll get him to the back of Theater 9 as soon as we can.
Cruiser 26, just for info, we got a team in the theaters on the north side.
Lincoln 25, I've got one ambulance here. Where are my ambulances at? Here. He's not working together. Coming out.
We have ambulances staging at the northwest corner of the theater. Again, ambulances should be northwest corner of the theater.
City to Century 16. I want them on Sable and I want them in the Dillard's lot. They're going to have to come in off of Alameda. EMS personnel in the metro area right now. Lincoln 25 to the guys in Cruiser 10. I need a medical crew in 9. I've got one victim eviscerated. We can't. Don't worry about the emergency. Keep the channel clear.
Copy.
17 dispatch, we're going to evacuate all we can out of 9 to the east side.
Copy. You're evacuating out of Theater 9.
Give me some ambulances to the back of the theater or the Sports Authority, Old Sports Authority lot.
Old Sports Authority parking lot. Copy. I'll let him know.
Lincoln 15 to Lincoln 20.
More resources coming in here.
Thank you.
Are you in Theater 9?
Yes.
And is that where the majority of it is?
We're clearing all the rest of the theaters now.
Victor 42 and Victor 16
Kennedy, I need somebody to shut this movie off at 9. Have me shut the movie off at 9. All right, I'll work on it. Weekend 25, everybody on this. It's an assault rifle. We have magazines down inside, so everybody watch out for the assault rifle. Metro 10, Lincoln 25. Do I have permission to start taking some of these victims via car? I got a whole bunch of people shot out here. No rescue. Yes, load them up, get them in cars, and get them out of here. We have one. We cannot move in Theater 9. Get an ambulance crew in here as soon as they're available.
I notified rescue. Just let me know what hospitals you're taking them to so we can give them a heads up.
Lincoln 25, just notify all the hospitals. We got people coming in.
Copy.
To start at the perimeters to the south of the location, which will be Abilene and Exposition, Fable and Exposition. And then I'm going to need a car from that point to take a location to the north at Abilene and Alameda.
Jumper.
Okay, post on the hallways. I don't want anybody coming out we might have missed. Repeat, if they are mobile, get them outside. We have a few that are not mobile. We need a rescue crew in here right away.
Copy, I'll tell them again.
Metro 11, en route, one patient, south.
Metro 11, copy, one patient south.
Join officers at the exits from the theater to be assistance to other cars so we can check people leaving, checking for injured parties, checking for parties that might be armed. I'd like to have 2 cars at every point at those locations.
Cruiser 49, okay.
Cruiser 25, the next ambulances come in. I'm going to direct them down to the east side of the theater. We need rescue or we need more patrol cars back to the east side. We're just going to take these people. Expedition, get down here.
Denver.
Rifle. Going to be 5.56 caliber. Sorry.
Officer, do you need rescue as well?
No.
Cruiser 49, I'm already identifying parties who saw the entire thing as it unfolded. So cars continue to stop people and ask questions as to what they saw.
We get out southbound where you in? Yes, I went out the farthest south entrance, and now I'm going down Exposition to Abilene. It's all open. All right, Cruiser 6 is taking 2 more victims. Guy's been shot in the neck. Has anybody been upstairs in this theater yet? They're working on it now. So we have bodies upstairs, or we're planning on doing that? We're clearing it now. Okay. I need somebody to 9, so we're moving 5 ambulatory by police cars. I still need some ambulances over here.
Copy, I'll let him know.
Lincoln 25, everybody inside. Realize that behind the screens, those are open venues, so you need to check behind those screens also. If they get a hold of Denver or ambulance, have them roll on this. Let Aurora South know that Cruiser 6 is en route, 1 critical, 1 semi-critical.
Okay, and we do have truck 2 en route to Theater 9, and medical personnel is en route to Theater 9 now.
I need any available patrol car back here or an ambulance. Lincoln 41.
Lincoln 41.
We need rescue to move up to the rear of the theater. We have officers there. We're requesting they come immediately for multiple victims. Advise rescue that the officers will be there for security. That's the best we can do at this point. Where do they need them? Down those screens because there's recesses behind them. They're huge. Yeah, we've got 5 possible employees in here. We're searching them now.
This is Denver Radio, Blue Southeast. Do I have any Denver cars on Blue Southeast now?
312. Denver, Jack 21.
Clear. Break. Dispatch to Aurora. Denver Radio to Aurora Radio on Blue Southeast.
Aurora Radio.
Clear. We have our cars switched over to Blue Southeast now.
Copy.
73 on Blue Southeast.
Copy Denver 673. Any other Denver units? Metro 16. Checking your status. We have an emergency key.
He's fine. We're evacuating victims.
Copy.
There's 11. Anybody in the free car? We can use them behind the theater transport. Sergeant Redford, I'm coming back. Do you need me to come back for more? Come back for more. I got 2 here that need treated right away. All right, I'm getting there. We send everyone to south. I think we need to start taking people to university.
Copy units. Just start transporting to university now. We do have more ambulance from out of the city coming in too.
We can get behind the east side of the theater so we can stop taking patrol cars.
Copy. I'll let him know.
Officers on foot around front. Watch out. We're leaving quickly with victims. Straight. They're like, we're going to have to get her down. Denver 320 and 324.
Denver 222.
Denver 231 and 212. Denver 234, 232, and 224.
Denver 230, 210, 310, 054, 317, 328, 324, 322, 231, 312, 234, 232, and 224.
On 13 trial. E77-6. Denver 8776.
Denver Yankee 33 and Denver Yankee 35 are coming code 6.
Yeah, 102.
Denver 354. Denver 310, where's their command post?
Denver to Aurora. Confirm the location of your command post.
To all units responding to assist Aurora, command post will be directly north of the theater. Again, the theater address is 14300 East Alameda Avenue. It will be just southeast of Interstate 225 and East Alameda Avenue, southeast of the Aurora Mall. Copy. You still have a lot of people shot on the east side. Need cars there.
All right, I'm rolling in now. All right, we're getting ready.
Cruiser 45, I'll be out there too.
Cruiser 45, okay?
All right, for the guy still in Theater 9, I'm working on a backboard right now for that female.
Aurora personnel searching inside of the movie theater as we speak.
Yeah, 230, let's get officers at the parking lot exits. They want everybody in the parking lot held in here for right now. And they are currently searching in the inside. They're going to give us an update in just a second.
TAC 16, sorry, TAC 21, Denver TAC 21. One of the construction workers said somebody just came booking out of the parking lot. Male, red backpack, that's all they saw, was headed towards Alameda.
So those were all of the police radio audio, just back and forth. It sounds, to me at least, like the officers on scene were trying their hardest. I don't know. This is fire and EMS. So I'm assuming, oh yeah, radio communications as well, not 911 calls. I know I said that in the beginning. I didn't read it. I'm sorry.
Engine 8, Battalion 1 on a shooting, 9 George 2, Century Theaters, 14300 East Alameda Avenue. Engine 8, Battalion 1 on a shooting, Century Theaters, 14300 East Alameda Avenue, cross to South Abilene, respond on TAC 2.
Medic 109 responding.
Medic 109, okay. Engine 8, fire dispatch.
Engine 8.
Engine 8, Battalion 1 and Medic 109. PD is requesting you at Expo and Stable. I still do not have a request entry. We just are having units get into the scene now. There may still be somebody actively shooting.
Battalion 1, copy.
109 copies, Expo and Stable.
Engine 8, Battalion 1, Medic 109. They need you hot to the front of the theater. So far, we have one party down.
Okay. Front of the building.
And Engine 8, we may have additional victims. We're starting a second ambulance.
Okay, let's start Tower 8 now, please.
Copy, sir. Starting Tower 8. And we're actually starting a third ambulance routine as well, and I'll get Tower 8 set us that way.
Copy. We're going to have staging away from the scene here a little bit. I'll give you a staging location, sir.
Dispatch 102, we're responding.
102 and round. Tower 8 to head in with Engine 8 and Battalion 1 on a shooting with multiple victims, at least 3 at this point. It's going to be Century Theaters, 14300 East Alameda Avenue. Tower 8 with Engine 8 on a shooting with multiple victims, 14300 East Alameda Avenue, cross to South Abilene, TAC 2. Engine 8, fire dispatch. Engine 8, fire dispatch. Battalion 1, fire dispatch.
Battalion 1, go ahead.
Battalion 1, and be advised that we have multiple victims, probably 3 plus. Our PD is stating that they have gas being sprayed inside the theaters. If you guys have gas masks, and there's going to be at least 1 patient in front of Dillard's, 1 patient Expo and Stable, 1 in front of the theaters. Battalion 1, sorry about that. We have multiple victims, probably at least 4 now. 1 is going to be in front of Dillard's, 1 in front of the theaters, 1 at Expo and Stable, and they have a gas being sprayed inside the theaters. You're going to need a gas mask.
Copy.
Saying to stage in the west parking lot, and they're saying 3 to 4 ambulances, which we'll get started with Rural Metro. We have Tower 8 en route with Engine 8. Do you want any more units?
Okay, let's set up ambulance staging at Expo
Turkish
and
military
Stable. Is that
doctrine
where
and
they want us to stage in the first
the
place?
storm is coming.
Yes, of
The
course.
original staging location, now they're saying the west parking lot. So let me try to clarify with PD that somewhere where we won't be necessarily coming into their scene. There's lots and lots of officers there.
Yeah, bases there. They need to set us up a staging area, and I'm not sure where they're at. I'm not seen yet.
And Engine 8, they're saying that they want the staging area in the west parking lot of the theater.
Medic 109, we are on scene with APD on the...
Dispatch from Engine 8.
Engine 8, go ahead, sir. I have information there may be at least 5 patients.
Okay, dispatch from Engine 8. We're on the scene. We do have
And the West,
getting reports of multiple victims and an
for
active
the United
theater.
States and the West,
Engine 8 is going to
nuclear
establish Century Command.
Engine 8 copy per PD. They're saying they're taking the victims to the north end of the theater, and Engine 8 is in command. I'm going to start you. Looks like 2 more ambulances routine. And Engine 8, please advise if you need other engines with you. I just have Tower 8 en route so far.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start 2 more engines, emergent, and we'll do
For the United States and the West.
On Sable.
For the United States.
We'll do the correction. We'll do the west parking lot of the mall, or the east parking lot of the mall, adjacent to Dillard's.
Okay, and Engine 8, they're saying that they have a party on the east side of the theater that they can't get to. They need an ambulance. He's shot in the back, and multiple parties inside the theater. And Engine 8, I copy. I can start. It looks like you have 4 ambulances started. PD is requesting as many ambulances as possible to Dillard's. How many ambulances do you want? And I'll start 2 more engines.
On scene, west parking lot.
Medic 105 on scene. Engine 8 and any unit on scene at Century Theaters. PD is requesting you to Dillard's, again to Dillard's at the mall. They're taking all victims to Dillard's. Fire dispatch, 7.03 en route.
Tower 8, Battalion 1. Battalion 1, Tower 8's on scene with APD. We're down at the Expo and Sable. He's got a victim in the car. We're going to go ahead and take that right now.
Yeah, I got one down here at Center Point and Sable. Any way you can split your crew and send some people up here to Center Point and Sable.
Copy, we're going to get out of the rig, and triage just went out, and then I'll try to make my way up north to you.
Dispatch medic 109.
109.
Who's command here?
Medic 109, I'm sorry, repeat.
Who is command here?
They're saying, I believe the Dillard's parking lot. Engine 8 is in command.
Engine 8, medic 109.
This is Century Command, go ahead.
LT, I'm down here north of the Century Theaters. I've got a GSW 18 female to the leg.
Okay, Medic 109 from Century Command. We're on the northwest corner of the theater. We're kind of starting a treatment center here. We have multiple victims right here at our engine.
Okay, my patient is stable right now. I'm going to get her loaded up and get going.
Century Command, fire dispatch. Century Command, fire dispatch.
Century Command.
Sir, Rural Metro is sending all ambulances available in Aurora to where you guys are. We started 2 additional engines. Do you need any additional fire apparatus?
That's affirmative. Give me 2 more additional engines at this point. I'm going to want them on the northwest corner of Century 16 at this point.
Break, Central Command 102.
102.
Yes, sir. We're over just to the north of Dillard's. Is there a way?
Century Command, Medic 105. 105.
Fire dispatch from Tower 8. We're down at Sable and Expo. We need an ambulance for a GSW to abdomen, arms, and legs. If you have anyone to spare.
Command from 8.4.
Command, go ahead.
We have, on the northeast corner, we have 4 reds. We have PD bringing out additional victims out the back here. I need another AFD unit at least, and 2 ambulances over here right away.
Agent
Are you on the northeast corner of the building, that exit? Copy, northeast corner. They just brought another red over to me, so now I have 5 reds, and they're bringing additional people to this corner.
שהסכם רע לישראל.
Century Command, Medic 105. Command, go ahead.
The PD is requesting as many medical personnel as possible to the Dillards to assist with patients there as well. We have 2 additional engines en route, engine 5, and then we also have a child down outside Theater 9.
Okay, command, copy. Break. KFD units inbound to Century theaters from command.
Man, this is Engine 4. We're at Mississippi and Abilene.
Okay, Engine 4, you're going to be Dillard's. I want to division you, and you're going to be Dillard's division. You respond to Dillard's, please.
Right, Central Command 102. We have a patient that we've just been stopped by at Center Point Stable right here that's laying on the back of a pickup truck. Do you want us to take that or go over to your staging area?
Okay, ambulance calling command. Who is that?
It's Medic 102.
Medic 102, we have a kid that's shot in the neck / face at Stable and Center Point Drive, and we're right here trying to get there. Do you want us to stay here and take this patient?
Ambulance. Who is this again?
102.
Fire dispatch 101 on scene.
101, copy on scene. Break. Century Command, Fire Dispatch. PD is saying they cannot evacuate the patient that's in Theater 9. They need medical personnel.
Copy.
Command, Medic 101. We're right in front of the theater with 105. We've got a patient down here. Do you want us to take that one?
That's affirmative. Go ahead.
Dispatch, Battalion 1 will assume command. Let me have an exact count of who is coming in. I need to know everybody who's coming in, fire apparatus. I need all the ambulances that are not on scene to stage at exposition and Sable till we get this sorted out.
Battalion 1, I have Engine 2, Truck 2, Engine 4, who has been assigned Dillard's Division, Engine 5, en route, and again, PD is requesting medical personnel in Theater 9. They have a child down and cannot evacuate.
Copy. We're going to set up fire departments that are not on scene to stage at Expo and Sable.
Any fire apparatus and medical apparatus that are not on scene at Century Theaters, I need you at Expo and Sable.
Command, trucks is on scene, stage Expo and Sable.
Sorry, copy. And PD is advising there are 10 people down outside of behind the theater, Theater 9.
Dispatch, command copies. Engine 4, this is Century Command.
Break. Medic 102 is stage, expedition, and Stable.
Command from Tower 8. We've got one patient right now in the back of the ambulance, and we're coming into the scene. Do you want it at the Dillards, or do you want it at the theater?
Okay, I need you to go to Dillard's. Engine 4, break. Are you on scene? Engine 4, Century Command.
Is showing on scene, sir.
Okay, Tower 8, Engine 4, you guys are going to become Dillard's Division. I need you guys to let me know how many ambulances you have. Dispatch, I need all ambulances that they're sending to stage at exposition. Let's put them one block east on Sable. Keep the fire equipment separate. And I'm going to have Engine 4 be in charge of that division. Engine 8, at this time, will be in charge of Century Division.
Copy, sir. I did advise Rural Metro, Expo, and Sable. I'll let them know 1 block east. And PD is again requesting emergent medical to the back of the theater.
I copy that. I'm just trying to get things under control here.
I copy, and again, they're still asking for additional medical in Theater 9.
Truck 2, what is your location?
Man, from truck 2, we can take the theater, and Theater 9 is like.
Okay, I need you to come up here. All fire apparatus that's coming to Century, I need you guys to come in off of the west side of these Century theaters where Engine 8 is. Engine 8 will be this division, Engine 8.1.
Command, Dillard, man.
Go ahead.
I've got 2 reds over here where 105 is. It's right in front of Dillard's, in between Dillard's and the front of the theater. If I can get an ambulance whenever you get a chance.
Copy. Just run that division. So far I have you in charge of Dillard's division with Tower 8. Just let me know what resources you need, and we'll go from there.
Century Command, fire dispatch.
Go ahead.
Sir, I apologize again. PD is asking for emergent medical to the back of the theater. They aren't on scene to provide security for you guys.
Copy. I have truck 2 coming around here to help Engine 8.
I copy, sir. I believe that they have another party inside Theater 9 that they can't evacuate, which is the child, but they have 10 parties down behind the theater, is what they're saying.
Copy. Will you go ahead and activate the EM system? We're going to need to know exactly how many beds these how many beds these hospitals can take.
Do we have an approximate patient count at all?
I'm just trying to sort out right now. I'm hearing 10 here, 4 here. I'm going to go with 20 for right now. Let's just go with 20 people so we can get this verified.
Okay.
Command, Dillard Division. I have Medical 102 over here. Can I have them to transport my 2 red patients?
Copy. Make sure you set up an extrication, triage, treatment, and if you can, a transport officer. All divisions. Set up an extrication, triage, treatment, transport within your division.
Dillard Division, copy.
Engine 5 on scene, stable, not quite in position. Command, we're right behind the theater. We just had a police officer run up to us that has 9 patients behind the theater here. This would be on the east side of the theater. Do you want us to stay here, or do you want us to go with the police officer?
Medical 103, truck A, I'm going to be following you, I guess, to the east side of the theater.
103 confirming you're going to the east side of the theater.
Stay from Prairie PD. Command, Engine 2 driving on scene.
Engine 2, I need you to report to the West Division, otherwise known as Century, and report to Engine 8. He'll have an assignment for you. You need to come in on the west side by Engine 8. Just park your rig out in the parking lot and bring your crew and all your kits.
Copy, we're trying to thread their PD card.
In Century Command, did you copy Engine 5? He's flagged down by an officer on the east side of the theater there.
Copy.
And he didn't know if you wanted him to stay there or continue on to Dillard's. Medic 109 is out. Medic 109, copy.
Command, Engine 5.
Engine 5, this is Command, Century Command.
We're on the east side of the theater on Sable. Do you want us to attend to the patients on the east side?
You only have 1 patient there, correct?
Police officer told us there's 9 patients.
Command from truck 2.
Truck 2.
We
We are in the rear of the theater. We have 9 shots. If we can get any ambulances to stage on Sable, we can get them over to the ambos.
Okay. Just stand by. Let me get this sorted out. I'll get you with you in just a minute. Just hang on. Dispatch, Century Command.
Go ahead, sir.
Do we have any other chiefs responding?
That's negative, sir. Do you want me to start another chief?
Yeah, I need Chief 7 here, please.
Copy.
All right, Truck 2. I want you to join up with Engine 5. I'm just going to make you Sable Division. All units on scene, we're going to have 3 divisions. Century, which is going to be here with Engine 8. Sable Division, which will be Truck 2 and Engine 5. And right now we have Tower 8 and Engine 4 working Dillage Division. Please form an extrication/triage treatment transport area within your division. We're going to start there until we get more resources.
Century Command, Fire Dispatch.
Dispatch, just to avoid confusion, just call me Aurora Mall Command from this point on out.
Copy, sir. The lieutenant with the police department is requesting to meet you face-to-face in front of the theater, and we're starting Chief 7.
Copy.
Command from the Dealers Division, we're sending 2 red patients off on Medic 102 destination unknown. They're going to call and see who's open.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear from the EM system what beds are available.
Command, Truck 2. FYI, right now we're loading patients in the back of PD cars, getting them transported. Any ambos we can get would be nice.
Break 106. Truck 2, where do you need us? Truck 2, Medic 106. Where do you guys need us for a patient? Dispatch, how many ambulances? This is Command, Aurora Mall Command. How many ambulances do I have? And I need to have them all go to staging because we have people jumping in and out. I'm not sure anybody even is.
To be honest with you, sir, I don't know an exact count of the ambulances. They did just advise me that they're sending 2 more Pride Mark Emergent, and we have every unit that's available in the city of Aurora.
Okay, I need them to go to Sable. Can they send a supervisor? I want one of their supervisors to be in charge of that transport area over there at Expo and Sable so we can get a handle on ambulances, have them stage, and then I can start sending them into each division.
Command, Dealer Division. The Dealers Division.
Go ahead, this is Aurora Mall Command.
Chief, I've got Medic 103 over here. All he has is a green patient. If you have 2 red patients, they can take them.
Yes.
Dispatch 102, we're going to be en route. Emergent, 3 patients, 3 fires.
Dispatch, Aurora Mall Command.
Go ahead, sir. And RMA did advise I do have a supervisor now.
Make sure that all of these ambulances know to return to the staging area over there at Exposition and Sable. Drop off their patients, but we got to get a count because we can't overload South and University. I need to know if we're going down to Swedish, if we're going down to any of these other area hospitals that are level 1. All greens at this time do not transport, only reds, and that's per command.
Dispatch 102, we're transporting to University.
241, go ahead.
Dillage Division.
You have an assignment for 103 that can take 2 red patients.
Yes, I need them to come over to Century Division over here, just on the west side of the theaters.
Command, this is East Division.
Go ahead, East Division.
We have transported 7 patients. We're on our 8th patient. And also just talked to police officer who says we may have a number of people dead inside the theater.
Okay, if they're dead, just leave them. We're in a mass casualty situation at this time. Please make sure that you guys set up some kind of transport officer over there that can contact the hospitals so we don't overload one.
Copy, command.
And Aurora Mall Command, per rural metro, they do have ambulances returning back to the staging area.
Copy. Anybody else that's in the area that we can contact, maybe Cunningham, somebody that we can get a hold of. AMR, anybody.
Station 6, disregard tones. Station 9, Station 6, disregard tones.
5 minutes.
Copy.
And Aurora Mall Command, we're working on finding additional transport rigs to assist us with transporting from the scene.
Command Dillard Division, is the Century side, is that on the northwest or southwest?
Northwest. They're just going to have to park out there on that little circle. Do not come in where Engine 8 is. Just bring their prams, their equipment, and come on up to the scene.
Copy. Medic 402 to command.
Go ahead.
Command confirmation on the staging area. Do you want Sable in exposition or Sable in center point?
Sable and exposition is where we're putting all ambulances, and then each division will call an ambulance or call me, and we'll go from there.
And that was all of the fire/EMS radio dispatches. I mean, I think it's so crazy that for such a mass casualty event and such a large case, I'm sure, there's not a whole lot of documents available to the public. Like, this is it. These 6 documents is all I was able to get a hold of. And they're not very lengthy. This is the longest one. But this is the Aurora shooting witnesses or witness. I think it might be just one.
Right near the exit, right where he came in, actually.
So when he came in, you saw him almost immediately.
Yeah, I think I was the first person to see him, and I told my girlfriend to get down right before, or right when he was throwing the canister. And
did you know what he was throwing?
I knew it wasn't right. I watch a lot of TV and play video games, and he was head to toe in gear. And I figured if he was SWAT, they would yell something, or people would come with him.
So the fact that he was alone raised your suspicion.
Yeah, and he was straight stoic. He didn't do anything. Just stood there, threw the can, and then shot in the air.
Where were you, and what did you see?
I was on the front left. He was on the front right. So when he came in, I saw him just sort of stroll up and toss the canister, and he went over the crowd behind me, and I knew it was some sort of irritant, or because my eyes started burning as soon as he let go of the canister.
So you instantly started to feel it.
Yeah, we got out pretty quick, but he started shooting right after he threw it. He started shooting into the crowd and near exits and that kind of thing.
Were you able to see him in his eyes, his face at all? Because I mean, when you wear a gas mask, it pretty much covers your whole face. Because the police are saying his hair had been dyed red because he called himself the Joker to them.
I couldn't see.
You couldn't see any of that.
It was just we could see the I could see the plexiglass of his face of the mask, so I could tell where his but it was really dark and I saw him pull out. I wasn't sure what kind of gun it was until it went off, and then it was really loud, so I assumed it was a shotgun to start.
Right. They say he was armed with several weapons, shotgun among them. Did you actually see people getting hit?
Well, I looked up. I could see because I covered my girlfriend. I got her in the ground and I was covering her, so I was on top of her. So I was slightly elevated, and I could see the people behind us scrambling, and he was just firing into them. People were stopping, moving.
So you could see people in the back of the theater.
Yeah, I could see everybody. I could see the whole theater, and people were crawling and frantically trying to get over, and then some people weren't moving, and I thought, they could have just been laying there, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we saw everybody.
There was a time too where you were actually in the aisle and he was in the aisle, right?
Yeah. I was trying to count the bullets and I didn't help at all. But he stopped shooting long enough for me to look up, and I saw he looked like he was reloading. So I tried to get my girlfriend to come with me with the two girls in front of us, because I was the third aisle seat in. I couldn't get them to move. So I thought she jumped the seat with me, and I jumped it, and I ran the aisle, and I looked back, and I guess she couldn't make it over. And I saw him just look at me and was reloading. So I ran out to the exit.
He actually looked at you while he was reloading,
Well,
or in your direction.
Yeah, I looked at him and pretty sure he was looking in my direction. And I just ran to the door and I couldn't find it at first. And then I found it and I bolted around and went back in.
What did you see after he tossed the canister?
He tossed the canister and I knew something was wrong, and I started to try to get up. And then he took out the shotgun and he started firing into the upper deck. And
were people screaming?
Yeah. That's when the screaming started. So when he threw the canister, it was just dead quiet. And then as soon as he started firing, there was screaming everywhere, and I heard somebody like screaming that from the area he had shot, and it sounded like somebody was freaking out about somebody getting shot right next to them. And that's when we ducked onto the floor and we started crawling out. We tried to crawl all the way to the exit to where there was like a mini wall. I was ducking down when you were running past him. I think that was about the time, because I saw you.
Okay.
So
you remember seeing Isaiah?
Yeah, I remember seeing somebody run past him right at the start.
And was the movie playing during all this?
Yes, it was a really slow scene. I heard in some other reports that in Theater 8 there was gunfire, so they didn't know exactly what was going on right away. But in Theater 9, it was just a really dead scene with the Batcave with Alfred and Bruce.
Jurors will get new.
That was the witness statements. I don't know why it got cut for YouTube. I'm sure that there was more to that. This is the mental health evaluation, I believe, for James Holmes. And I just thought that it might be interesting to include because of the lack of documents. There's not nearly as many as I thought there was. So, with that being said, here we go.
Insight today into the mind of the accused gunman in the Colorado movie shooting trial. Lawyers presented video yesterday from James Holmes' court-ordered evaluation from last year. He explains his thoughts during the 2012 shooting. Prosecutors say he killed 12 people and injured dozens more. Barry Peterson is at the courthouse in Centennial, Colorado. Barry, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie. Well, it was an extraordinary journey into the mind of a mass murderer, videotaped by Dr. William Reed, shown to the jury. Reed asked, how did Holmes feel walking into the theater, dressed in body armor, with a shotgun, assault rifle, handgun, and a tear gas canister, ready to murder?
Heart pumping, adrenaline racing, no. Calm, keto, calm and collected. Calm and collected.
He emptied all 6 rounds of the shotgun, then opened fire with the assault rifle.
I heard a scream. You heard a scream, yeah.
He saw desperate people hiding behind seats, others scrambling for their lives.
They got down kind of behind the seats pretty fast. You didn't see anyone actually hit by bullets or shells or shot? I saw the one wounded guy they carried out kind of flop.
He gave himself points for each of the dead, but in his mind, the wounded didn't count. They were, in his words, collateral damage. And could he imagine what it was like for the people in the theater, his targets?
What do people feel when they're experiencing that? Terror, I would say. Can you expand on terror? Be very afraid and kind of unbelieving that could be happening at the moment.
Holmes said he wished Dr. Len Fenton, the psychiatrist at the University of Colorado who treated him before the shootings, had locked him up. Under Colorado law, Fenton could have had police detain Holmes on a 72-hour psychiatric hold.
Well, I kind of regret that she didn't lock me up, so everything could have been avoided. It's almost like there were 2 parts. One that wanted to do the mission, and one that wanted to be stopped. And the one that wanted to do the mission overruled.
Holmes referred to the massacre as his mission. When he was asked how he wants to be remembered, he said, as mentally ill and someone who was successful in my mission. Nora?
Wow. Disturbing.
No.
Very disturbing. Really, really disturbing. Very, thank you.
Wow. I actually do have the trial as well, but it's quite lengthy, so I'm not gonna go through that today. This is the photos of the theater after the shooting. This was within his house, I believe. Homemade explosives. Yeah, he not only made explosives, but booby-trapped the apartment. He applied to a college for neuroscience. He was very, very smart. Those are the photos on Los Angeles Times. I'm not sure if there's photos within the documents. I don't think that there is outside of this one. There's a couple of the ones that I just showed you. We'll just start with the charging document. I'm not gonna read each one because you'll get the gist. And the charging document is literally just the charges and then the description of each charge. That's it. It's nothing spectacular. So, murder in the first degree, bunch of times. 24 counts, actually. Criminal attempt to commit murder in the first degree. And that is $140 counts. And then possession of explosive or incendiary. I don't know how to say that.
Count 141, possession of explosive or incendiary device. CRS 18 to 12-109.
And then crime of violence, 142 counts.
Chambers Carroll, District Attorney for the 18th Judicial District of the State of Colorado, in the name and by the authority of the people of the State of Colorado, informs the court of the following offenses committed or triable in the county of Arapahoe County. Count 1, murder in the first degree. On or about July 20th, 2012, James Egan Holmes unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation, and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Jonathan Blunk, in violation of Section 18.3.102, CRS Count 2, murder in the first degree. On or about July 20th, 2012.
I'm not entirely sure about his online presence. From what I see in the documents, I went through these ones before today, but I just got this one today, and I haven't fully went through it. Within these ones, no. Outside of Gmail transcripts, that's roughly all I have found on his online presence. I don't know. I think we ran him, and all of his social media has been either taken down or he didn't have any. So, not entirely sure. We can actually get into the Gmail transcripts. This is him, and I don't know who me is.
FWD, chat with G.
Sorry. But these are his transcripts. I'm assuming he's talking about just random stuff. I don't know who he's talking to. I went through some of these, and I think towards the end was when I seen him talking about, like, killing people. He was a gamer. Hmm. I wonder who he's emailing with. And why it's on email. 'Cause it's, like, short back and forth, you know? Hmm. Maybe a girlfriend? I seen one saying limbo. I didn't see much else. Murder mystery dinner. Hmm. Hmm. So he had Ambien. And he was seeing a therapist, according to his mental health evaluation video. He wished his therapist had put him on a hold, and that way the shooting could have been avoided.
Did he ask when it started? It's individual, and you sought it out.
Sorry. Hmm. Typical rapist move, not waiting for an answer, yeah. I've just finished my paper summaries. I've stopped reading the ones that get presented by students and just read the figures. Hmm. I would, and I am debating whether to sleep, Skyrim, or read. They said Skyrim, slay those damn dragons. He said I would, and all, but it probably won't be very useful for the future. They said, how much is reading or sleeping going to help? He said, more than video games, I suppose. They said, it's something fun that you like to do. Go ahead and do it. Fuck the future for once. Do what you feel like doing. It's a Sunday afternoon. He said, well, what I feel like doing is evil, so can't do that. They said, what do you feel like doing? He said, video games are the next best thing through escapism. They said, what is so evil that you want to do? He said, kill people, of course. That's why I live in the future. They said, killing people is too much effort. You'll end up locked up. Most people are not worth that or worth what might happen to you because of that act. He said, that's why you kill many people. They said, even then, at least personally, I'm selfish and have too much of an idea of self-importance. Most people aren't worth jack shit. Even if you go postal, what's it worth? What do you gain? He said, there's no way to do it and not get caught, but the only way justice can be served is by taking away your time or life. They said, why do you care so much about justice? He said, if you wait to kill until the end of your life, then there is nothing to lose. They said, but why would you want to kill? As in, why would you decide this is the end and kill when you could live more, experience more things? Why would those people be worth ending your life? He said, it's the end. It's the end then, though. No more experiences. They said, why? How do you decide it's the end? He said, you want to play some Dom? They said, sometime today I gotta finish up some stuff. I've to send strong, but after that I'll keep you posted. He said, ciao. And that is the end of the email chain. Yeah, that's crazy. This is his notebook. It's kind of hard to read though, so I might not be able to read all of this. The questions. What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of death?
Pogoober, Chrissy Bobo, love yous.
Whoa, it's too fast. Hold on.
Pogoober, Chrissy Bobo, love yous.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. Insights into the mind madness. All men are uncreated equal. Oh yeah, we did look at his inmate thingy. We were curious because we couldn't find him in Colorado. So we looked up his inmate number, and no, he was attacked in prison. And so they moved him to a federal prison in Pennsylvania.
Can a person have both no value and be ultimately good and or ultimately evil? In value unknown. Why does the value of an arson even matter? Justice. If people are ultimately good or evil in valve, then one may suffer from injustice. If life has no valve, all is just. Life and death are not demarcated. Any and all actions have me. Import on anything. Moral imbeciles are those who side with Ores, the ideals of Soli. Why did Payson's comment to all men are created equal, and all men are uncreated equal, but cubed between there is inequality? My mind yen. Life's fallback solution to all problems, death. O multiplying both sides of air equation by O. When manking can't find truth, untruth is converted to truth via violence. Problem equal to? Ox problem XO best on and incorrect therein 0 equal to 0. Is. Problem equal to solved. 0, 0 violence is a false response I. To truth while giving the illusion of truth, this widely understood with murder being unjust. However, mankind hasn't found a better alternative, and there is still mass violence, war, and unfortunate these forms of violence are misleadingly still justified. I have spent my outing life seeding this, that the fraction, alternative live and what to live ye may be redressed. 30 alternatives to death, D, ignore the problem. If the problem or question doesn't exist, then the solution is irrelevant. Forms of escapism tried included reading, television, and alcohol. To delay the problem. Live in the moment without concern for answering the problem at present. Didn't work? Pursued knowledge to increase the capacity for answering the questions with improved cognitive function 3. Pawn the problem. If one can't answer the question themselves, get someone else to answer I didn't work. Everyone else didn't know the solution either. Love, hate, or desert. Towing death is false and sell putting resport. I couldn't find a working alternative. If all life is dead, then the question, why should life exist, what is the purpose of living, and are then irrelevant. Self-diagnosis of broken mind, dysphoric mania, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, OCD, PTSD, Asperger syndrome, autism, ADHD, schizophrenia, body dysmorphic disorder, borderline, narcissistic, anxious, avoidant, and obsessive-compulsive personality disorders, chronic insomnia, psychosis, trichotillomania, adjustment disorder, pain disorder, restless leg syndrome.
These are his self-diagnosis of broken mind. So all of these are things that he thinks he has, and more.
Symptoms attributed to. If diagnosis. Catatonia developed recently, often lasts for 3 to 5 hours in the middle of the day. If present in morning and I know, it isn't particularly bad, can good myself. To move by, thinking Bambi get up you sund. Get was. Excessive fatigue, present since beginning. Undergraduate studies. Can move but typically. Need to be down for I hour. Isolationism. Removing myself from soul settings, being around others is tiring with no apparent reason. Pertigit, just an extreme form of introversion. A word, social interactions, 99% of the time. Will not initiate a conversation. If discourse is unavoidable or student actions socially unacceptable, reparses will be short or in question form to have other person be the one talking. Brief periods of invincibility, actions are in. Hyperspeed, developed in last 3 months, occurs typically or days a week listing all days with. Extabriang, possible interludes of catate. Tiredness most of the time for about an hour, one unknown. Quick fleeting movements on peripheral vision, kind of like a light flicker other times, dark splotchy movement in peripheral vision, the acro or beetle. Occurrence rate usually I to 3 times per day. Night. Onset unknown but greater than known year ago, when gaze is shifted to identify movement mo source, or potential source for its copiant. Proclivity to scan environment with no target or object occurs alongside agathy mind. Typically in a boring situation when someone is giving a presentation otherwise rambling about fruitory information. Rate. Often. Onset. Child. Recurring return to mirror to look at appearance. Particular attention focused on hairstyling. 10 plus times a day. Onset I carigo. Concern with teeth, only thewed with side of you to preserve right side of bath. Accursed as chilly net prosed after getting phrases. 34. Concern with nove, often dripey, a leaky faucet requiring contenvery wrong. When more interferes with quality of living, cores are squishal to the point of skin peeling. Quays situationally since child. Conmore, concern with ears. Cannot hear very weth concern with eyes imperfect biology, had to wear glasses. Oculus sinister is dominant eye concern with cock. Suffered accidents as child, allergic reaction to sex excessive stimulation in response to most beautiful in world. I had read in a book, other event, a slab of shing tore away, did met heal. Results of accidents not prevalent to absent appearance. When erect, W starring. An ability to commentate what I want say, although I can understand it. Typically have an image in my mind, but when say images or draw them, would be nice if there. Some form of telepathy to transfer the ways. Difficulty concentrating or focusing anything longer than 15 minutes. Created a learning strategy of studying 15 minutes, then watching TV and repeat. Very effective, but only in isolation. On. Odd sense of self view myself as hun there is a biological me which is driven by biological needs, ing. Hanger drives me to go eat, third, to drink, etc. The real me is fighting the biological me. The real me, namely thinking me, does things not because I'm programming to, but BC I choose to. The latest battle I look was when I finally succumbed. In love, evolution, the biologica to falling. Programmed soda is very difficult to fight. Can't fall his legs when I want to fall asshole. Sometimes any legs and arms will twitch involuntarily. 4 per month. Much more common is having to adjust slogany position 10 plus times and might be see a physical discomfort. Random, no apparent cause stabby back pain. More tie pined is throbbing achy lover back you, hair pulling. First was back of head at Bill 10 mu grade. When someone mentioned switated location, sideburns like fear early college, under then recently Evil Pris and Evelist. The obsession day. The entire world with nuclear bombs. Then shifted to Berlogic's agent that destroys the mind. Most recently serial murder A, cell phone iational forests, stun gun and folding knife. And finally, the last escape, mass murder at the movie's possession onset 2.1. Where? Ago, so anyways, that my muses I tried to fix it, I make it my sole conviction, but using something that's breaking to fix itself to neuroscience seemed like the way go. But it didn't pan out in order to rehabilitate the broker. My soul must be eviscerated. I could not sacrifice my soul to have a normal mind. Degaunt my biologid. Shortcomings I have fought and fought, always defending against predetermination and the fallibility of man. There is one more battle to fight with life. To face death, embrace the long-standing betred of mankind, and overcome all fear and certain death. Strayzy conses futility. The mind is a prison of uncertainty. Trillions of cells guard it for eternity. Oh, where art thou, master key? Destroy the mind and be free, Homo sapiens, biblical. Garden of Eden, consume fruit of knowledge cast out of utopia. Mythical, Grek mythical. Prometheus, steets fire from gods. Giver knowledge of fire to man eternal torture, angle-eating liver. Berman Faust, trade soul to devil, for knowledge is down, nothing easily recog as soon as heat features encapsule merry row but these. 38. The blind. Clove your eyes, leave them closed, even them. The sightful know when their eyes are open. The insightful know not whether they see with their eyes open or closed. The number live. Weak plus. Average. Strong. The weak are most likely to perish in trying times wooies. The strong are most likely to overcome. Why do the AVG Anstar support the weak? This is easily answered. In trying times, the weak will fall. They act as a buffer. Furthermore, when the weak die, the AVG and STR become weaker. Wah. Cerebral fitness is fixed when compared to May versus Notabene, but man the fifth man is relative. Everything. Everything suffers the same paradoxical guides as nothing. The ripple butterfly effect in Unity. Reference to the butterfly flagging its and reusing a torty WRE world tornado halfway. The space and time are matricably linker. Go ahead and attempt to visualize or understand time. Without some sort of matter depiction attached similarly, space is non-existent who time. Imagine space. You've probably imagined. Snapshot, a single time point of physical objects. Around every being is a unique particle set of spacetime, between or filler amongst beings. Established continuity of the universe. Any action, or lack of action, ripples throughout the entire universe at a given spacetime. In one's selfish mature, we choose to view ourselves as distinct or separate from the unwar. A single universe ourself, per se. This isn't correct. We are all unity. As such, there is no difference between life and death or spacetime. All things, actions, and phenomena are not multiple ripples. Instead, the universe is a single unitary preponderos of which we are each a port of. This may be unfothan to some and result in the seeking of escapian, an attempt at reductionize of unity into fractured. Entities, to me, this unity is infinitely complex, much more preferable. System, unity through mill, is a simple why. Why? Why?
Wow. Yeah, lots of whys. I'm so sorry. This is crazy. Here we go.
The cruel twists of fate are unkind to the misfortunate. Method, bombs X, biological warfare X, serial murder X, mass murder spree venue, airport or movie theater. Azort, the 10th substantial security. Too much of AR mess terrorist history terrorism isn't the massage. The message is there is no messages. Fools will misintizord correlation for causation, namely relationship. And work failure on causes, both were expediting catalyst, not the reason, the losation being my sight. Of mured for the past 2 years. Mall. Undoored Billiga, the move theater, Livemark isolated proximal large. What better place to case therent facility? An inconspicuous entertainment, more visible. Sable south side of theater, optimal 15 screens movies. Reest visibility. Dull doors entrance, avoid Moo Mary exits, wrong spatial location, very large primary target. Only 2 exits, excellent splint approach. Movegoers median size, best side of approach. F clockwise numerical organization. Only 2 exits, Silzar Saigi single door entrance visibility marginal. Only I ring T4. Exits. Tots visible, avoid 9. 10 and 12 best targets in complex. Best parking it. Table start 3 options of attack. Start at 10 start at smokers. Escape pros, con start pros. Start at smaller arena, can lock OBL doors. At 10% increase in casualties, starting point more conspicuous than others. Very inconspicuous starting point 18 can begin person. Packed in single area can't lock double doors, many escapes Kongsamaker, 02. Sten Prezi least conspicuous, can. Start at 1089. The heart appears best, cautious approach 18 cons Flynn need for smoke, can lock to bores, inflicting mass in 10. Casualita may re-enter in hill, more on bail. Most prone for door being locked or clamp removed, real smokers literally warving. Time Ben hallway is vulnerable. 52 Netchwant guard, police department, movies. ETA response 3 mins, the shrink. Mel, last name unknown evaluator Margaret Roth, Lynn Fenton. 3rd Robert Feston, 1 family therapy W. Mel, revealed nothing, as to not appear weak amongst family. Was a hit at time, parasuicide, mother noted. Asked what happened, replied paper cut. No further investigation, a clan bill of health decided to dedicate others, so would Livel. 1.5 requested punctured for anally C with a noisty or depression. Fist acting Berzos, long listing SSRIs Sertelyud. Sertraline primarily antidepressant, VOT, anxiolytic anxiety, and depression, both serotonergic system aguai though. No effect when needed. First appearance of mania occurs, not good mania, anxiety and fear disappears. No more fear of failure. Fear of failure drove determination to improve, better and succeed in life, no fear of consequences. Primary drive, reversion to hatred of mankind, intense aversion of people, muse unturn. Bugan long ago, suppressed by greater fear of others. Fear, hatred unchecked, starts small. By stun gun and folding knife. Research Faison's bus and mental illness. By Landon committed, shotgun, AR-15, second land gun, Wildford, explosives, simplest and least suspicious, gasoline and oil. Acquire remote detonation system and body armor, practicing shooting at B. Byers Canyon rifle range, can't tell the mind racist plan. If plan is to sealard both normal life and ideal exactment on hatred forward, no more. Not prevent building false sense of report. Speak truthfully in deflecting cremating. Questions. Oddly, they don't pursue or delive farther into harmful emissions, attempt to see if Nan pass exams as myself and by fear. Fail. I was fear incarnate, love gone, motivation directed to hate Ost obsessions, which didn't decipher for ale reason W the drugs. No consequence, fear, alone, isolated, no work for distractions, no reason to sick self-actualization. Embraced, the hatred, a dark night rises. Faith, what kind of God commands his people not to murder yet cowers behind free will? Reason, the reason why life should exist is as arbitrary as the reason why it shouldn't life shouldn't exist.
And that is the end of his journal. I think it's kind of crazy that he went from, I don't know, like just taking notes about himself and like his thoughts and stuff to multiple pages of why, and then his plan to shoot up the theater. And that's all that contains is his thoughts at first, and then him like crashing out, and then his plan to shoot up the theater. Kind of weird. I think this is, I don't know if this was what they like found at his apartment and like this was his layout plan of the theater, or this was the layout of the theater that they had. I don't know. But this is like his payment transcripts for, I'm assuming, each thing that he bought regarding the explosives, ammo, guns, etc. But it's hard to read because it's not flipped the right way and you can't change that, unfortunately. And then his college application, and these are the 7 applicants from the past weekend for James Holmes, it says do not offer admission under any circumstances. For James Holmes, I agree with Dan, don't admit. For James Holmes, no offer. This is his application. Hold on, because he actually has an essay.
To prepare myself for graduate study at the University of Iowa, I sought involvement in a general array of academic research. My first summer internship at the Salk Institute of Biological Studies was done while I was still in high school. Working in, I had little experience in computer programming and the work was challenging to say the least. Nonetheless, I taught myself how to program in Flash and then constructed a cross-temporal calibration model. The purpose of this model was to show an illusion between cause and effect relationships. In this illusion, the mind is actually tricked into believing an action precedes the event that caused it. Completing the project and presenting my model at the end of the internship was exhilarating, and I believe graduate study at the University of Iowa will provide commensurate opportunities for a satisfying neuroscience research experience. Another laboratory I worked in was within the Department of Chemistry at the University of California, Riverside. Having previously been exposed to a computational approach, I wanted to explore the facets of chemical analysis. Beginning by making buffer solutions, I soon advanced into more complicated techniques. These included performing high-performance liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry, and ultraviolet spectroscopy on a modified 12-mer DNA sequence. With the end product, we bombarded the DNA with ultraviolet rays to observe cancerous effects. Although I don't plan on curing cancer in graduate school, I believe this research experience is worthwhile and relevant to my goals of contributing to neuroscience. Only with a multidisciplinary perspective to the specialized field of neuroscience can we hope to fully understand the brain. The most recent laboratory I worked in was the Flight Lab in the Department of Cellular Biology and Neuroscience. Working in this lab enabled me to distinguish structural and quantitative differences in neural systems at a lower level of functional analysis. I dissected various flight muscles of passeriforms and then stained their motor end plates. With these stained muscles, I compared their arrangements to the stained muscles of hummingbirds, which have a unique motor end plate pattern. In the future, my goal is to analyze and study higher neural functional levels of analysis, such as learning and memory. Rational people act based on incentives for self-fulfillment, including fulfilling needs of self-development and needs of feeling useful and helpful to others. I look forward to fulfilling my quest to advance my knowledge, and I plan to use my critical thinking skills by studying the subject I am passionate about, neuroscience. I desire to attend graduate study at the University of Iowa, a leader and innovator in scientific research, because the university will provide opportunities to pursue my foremost passions, the science of learning, cognition, and memory. The unit fascinated by the complexities of a long-lost thought seemingly arising out of awareness. These fascinations likely stemmed from my interest in puzzles and paradoxes as an adolescent and continued through my curiosity in academic research. Making new discoveries in neuroscience is intrinsically rewarding in its own right. I have an unquenchable curiosity, a strong desire to know and explore the unknown, and a need to persist against the odds. Graduate study at the University of Iowa will provide a focus for me to perform and achieve through neuroscience research. Researching learning and memory interests me because these are the very cognitive processes which enable us to acquire information and retain it. They are at the core of what distinguishes us as people. Due to the seemingly infinite vastness of indefinite knowledge, we must be selective in our pursuits of knowledge. This is why I have chosen to study the primary source of all things, our own minds. Ultimately, I aspire to become a cognitive neuroscientist. I intend to continue performing research after graduate school in either academic or public sectors. My lifelong goal is to increase the efficiency of how human beings learn and remember. James Holmes. Aspiring scientist James Holmes.
And that was his application essay. This has all of his experience and other stuff, like his education, his skills. He was super smart, and I think this might be more.
Differences and contrasts between monitors. Programmed a Flickr Fusion utility which notes strawberry fields every day on my way to school into the town of Castroville, the artichoke center of the world. At school, everyone wore a mandatory uniform consisting of navy blue jeans for the boys and a navy blue skirt for the girls, while everyone donned a white shirt. I didn't know at the time why uniforms were necessary, but later I discovered the uniforms were issued to curb gang rivalry. Looking back, my life could have gone in a completely different direction had I not possessed the foresight to choose the path of knowledge. I chose to appreciate an education, cultivating my mind. Since then, I have strived to find new and better ways to learn, to improve. This is why I aim to attend graduate school and why my primary aim is to explore learning and memory. In the field of cognitive neuroscience, researchers come from many different backgrounds, and bring part of who they are to their investigations. I too will bring my past, specifically my strong moral upbringing. In addition, I will also exemplify my resolution and clairvoyance in problem solving. These abilities and more are typified in a summer job I performed as a camp counselor for underprivileged children. Assuming a leadership role was something I was previously unaccustomed to, but I took on the task with fervor. For the next week, 12 boys ages 10 to 11 would look up to me for guidance and direction in Cheyenne Cabin. Following them, 9 more weeks with 9 more groups. Every day there were activities for the kids, but one of the activities, create your own, tended to turn into chaos. At first, I chose to let the kids decide what they wanted to do and put it to a vote. Democracy, right? Bad idea? Some wanted to go to the game room, others wanted to rest, some wanted to go to the field, but there was no way to manage everyone if they split up. The outcome resulted in 12 kids arguing with each other, name-calling and pushing. To resolve these types of incidents from occurring again, I changed my strategy. Create your own became game room on Monday, sports on Tuesday, drawing on Wednesday. And if the kids were really good, I devised something special for them, like lizard catching. In the middle of that week, when the campers were writing letters to home about their camp experience, one of the little guys asked me how to spell amazing. When it was time for each cabin to go home, there were always kids telling me they wanted the same cabin next summer, and if I would be back again to be their cabin counselor. At those moments, I felt a sense of unparalleled accomplishment. Other times, I felt that I could be doing more. On average, 2 of the kids per cabin were clinically diagnosed with ADHD. One of the weeks, I mentored a kid with schizophrenia. At 3:30 a.m., he woke up and vacuumed the ceiling of our cabin. These kids were heavily medicated, but this did not solve their problems, only create new ones. The medication changed them from highly energetic creative kids to LAX beings who slept through the activities. I wanted to help them but couldn't. This is where neuroscience research becomes invaluable. With a neuroscience doctorate, there is even more to accomplish. Those most in need of an education, including children and people with cognitive disabilities, can benefit from the results of research into the workings of learning, memory, and brain-behavior relations. Indeed, all aspects of society have the potential to gain from advancements in our understanding of learning and memory because we are all connected. We all share one brain, the human brain.
And that was the end of his application essay. So we have went through all of the documents that I had before, and I don't know if this is the FBI's report. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I think it's a multiple agency report type thing, but it is the after action report. It is April 2014. Yeah. And it is 195 pages long. So I don't know if we're going to go through all of it. We will try our best. Let me see if it starts up there or if I need to scroll down. Okay, here we go.
On July, shortly after midnight, a lone gunman opened fire on moviegoers attending the premiere of a Batman movie in the Century 16 Theater Complex in Aurora, Colorado. He shot 70 people using a shotgun, AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle, and handgun. Of the 70 shot, 12 died, at least 3 of whom were heroically shielding friends with their bodies. The gunman also had booby-trapped his apartment on Paris Street with improvised explosive devices. In addition to those shot, at least 12 people are known to have suffered injuries in the course of fleeing the theater, some of which were serious enough to require surgery. In total, at least 82 people suffered physical injuries, not including minor injuries that were not recorded. In addition to the physical injuries, many movie patrons, family and friends of the casualties, first responders, and people in the community suffered psychological trauma as a result of the incident. What went well? Overall, the combined efforts of Aurora public safety agencies, police, fire, communications with timely assistance from neighboring jurisdictions, the FBI and ATF, achieved the best possible outcomes following the shooting. All victims with survivable serious wounds were rapidly triaged, transported to nearby hospitals, and recovered. The first police unit arrived in less than 2 minutes from the first 911 call, and multiple units arrived within 3 minutes. They almost immediately apprehended the armed suspect outside the rear of the theater, without injury. The first fire department unit arrived in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. They immediately engaged in patient care near the main entrance of the theater. Multiple improvised explosive devices at the shooter's Paris Street apartment were disarmed by an interagency bomb task force, with no harm done to the building occupants or first responders, and with no major damage to the building. The FBI sent senior technical experts to assist the local bomb squads. and the combined team performed exceptionally well in disarming the complex devices. All 5 area hospitals receiving victims provided outstanding emergency care without having much forewarning to prepare for the influx of 60 victims who arrived at their doors, most with gunshot wounds and many in critical condition. None of the hospitals had to divert patients to other hospitals. The Public Safety Communications Department handled 6,000 calls instead of the 1,500 on a typical day, and all were answered within established call answering goals. The center's telecommunicators supported the incident throughout and were instrumental in alerting nearby jurisdictions to render These successful outcomes derived in large measure from a combination of extraordinary performance by the initial wave of arriving police officers acting on their own judgment and training, the medical care at the scene administered by fire and EMS personnel and later in the hospitals, and good luck as to the location of the incident and the time of day. A large number of police were able to respond quickly because Police District 2 headquarters was less than a mile away from the theater, and the incident occurred during a shift change. It also helped that there was little police activity elsewhere in the city, and the roads were clear after midnight on a workday. Police commanders counted on the large number of responding officers to use good judgment and their training. They could not be individually directed in the first minutes, and could not be on the radio channels without overloading the communication system. Officers and supervisors performed exceptionally well, flowing around the theater, taking up containment and observation positions, cordoning off the theater, recognizing the probable shooter, arresting him with no injury, and checking for secondary shooters and explosives. Ambulances could not get through to several patient triage and treatment locations because of traffic and pedestrian congestion in the parking lots, exacerbated by unattended police vehicles. Police officers decided to transport victims in police vehicles rather than wait for ambulances to get through, or for patients to be carried long distances to ambulances, contemporaneous with the police decision to transport. A firefighter on another side of the building asked an officer to transport a victim the firefighter was treating. Of patients brought to hospitals, 27% went in police cars and 20 in ambulances. Others were transported in private vehicles and 1 walked. This level of police transport was unplanned and unprecedented. If the police cars had not been used for rapid transport of seriously wounded victims, more likely would have died. While considered out-of-the-box thinking for this incident, the use of police cars for transport of gunshot wounds is becoming more accepted. The latest emergency medicine research suggests that speed of getting a gunshot wound victim to a close-by hospital is more important in many cases than the mode of transport or care en route. Fire department personnel triaged over 100 people at multiple triage centers set up around the theater. Some moviegoers were bloodied and unsure if they were injured. The fire and EMS personnel treated many victims before assisting them into transports to hospitals, or letting them leave on their own if able to do so. Police officers and supervisors did an excellent job in crowd control of the at least 1,200 people fleeing the theater complex into the surrounding parking lots. The police separated the crowd into groups by theater and arranged bus transport to the local Gateway High School where they were interviewed. Adams County, Arapahoe County, Denver, the ATF, and the FBI deserve special recognition for their assistance. Denver sent about 97 police officers and supervisors. The FBI sent over 100 agents and specialists. Many Aurora City departments contributed to handling the incident and its aftermath. A unified command between law enforcement and fire department officials successfully managed the Paris Street bomb scene. Aurora Police brought in the Adams County Bomb Squad, Arapahoe County Bomb Squad, and then FBI, ATF, and Denver Police Department experts. Police evacuated residents in the apartment building where the explosives were located and the surrounding buildings in case things went wrong. The team of bomb experts successfully disarmed multiple complex devices. The team made excellent use of the Adams County robot, and a fire department aerial unit helped law enforcement look into the apartment before entering. Areas for improvement. The situation was complex, and there were many challenges for first responders. Below is a summary of the salient issues that need attention going forward. They are discussed in more depth in the body of the report, along with lesser issues. Over 80% recommendations for improvement in handling future incidents are made. Many have already been implemented by Aurora. Unified or single overall command police and fire officials did not establish a unified command nor a single overall commander until late in the first hour of the incident. Having a unified command might have resolved police-fire communications issues regarding getting ambulances in closer to victims and clarifying the level of risk to fire EMS personnel. This is not to imply that response actions in the first minutes should have been held up until a joint command was established. Any such delay could have negatively affected the outcome. Fire Department Incident Command. For the most critical period of the incident, an acting battalion chief was Fire Incident Commander without support from other chief officers. As a result, Fire Incident Command was initially overwhelmed due to patient volume and geographical scope of the incident. Within the Incident Command system, an overall Incident Transportation Coordinator was not appointed. The city of Aurora has grown rapidly to over 340,000 in population. It is adjacent to the city of Denver and Denver International Airport. The city straddles 3 counties, Adams, Arapahoe. In September 2011, the APD, AFD, and the PSED participated in Operation Mountain Guardian, a multi-agency terrorist attack drill in the Denver metro area. Terrorist attacks were simulated at schools, hospitals, and other major public venues. In addition, all 3 departments participated in the following training exercises since 2010. Operation Vortex to EOC operations. Operation Vortex at Denver International Airport was held on October 11, 2012. It was a North Central region exercise that focused on tornado response and recovery efforts. On July 2012, the Century 16 Theater was showing a midnight premiere of the latest Batman movie. The Dark Knight Rises. To a capacity audience of about 400 patrons in Theater 9, it was for the most part a young adult crowd, with many people in their 20s. The movie theater complex had in total about 1,200 to 1,400 attendees that night, spread over 9 theaters large and small. Theaters 8 and 9 were the largest 2 in the complex. Figure 6 shows the layout of the theaters. Figure 6. Layout of theaters inside of the Century 16 theater movie complex. Figure 7 shows the interior inside of the Century 7 interior of theater. Figure 8. Aerial photo of movie theater complex. Attack starts. Shortly after midnight, a person standing in the aisle, wearing black clothes, body armor, and a gas mask, released a canister of CS gas and opened fire on the audience. He had purchased a ticket and entered as a regular patron, then left early in the movie, going out a rear exit near the right side of the screen. He put a plastic clip on the door lock as he exited so he could get back in, and then went to his car parked a few feet from the exit to retrieve weapons and protective gear. He re-entered the theater through the same door. The exit was not alarmed, and it was dark outside, so his leaving and re-entering probably was not much noticed. The shooter carried into the theater a shotgun, AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle, and A-caliber semi-automatic handgun. He left a second. Caliber pistol in the car. He first opened fire with the shotgun, firing 6 shells until he exhausted its ammunition. He then switched to the rifle, firing at least 65 high-velocity rounds from a magazine until the rifle apparently malfunctioned. He also fired 5 rounds from the handgun. The shooting started near the screen and the exit he had re-entered. The shooter worked his way up the aisle, firing at patrons as they fled out the end away from the screen, which led to the lobby. One can hear the rapid firing of a semi-automatic weapon during the initial 911 calls. After most patrons who could move had fled, the shooter again left the theater through the rear exit to go to his car, where he was almost immediately apprehended by 2 Aurora police officers who had just arrived. Despite the extremely fast police response, 70 people were shot before police arrived, of whom 12 died. This was the largest number of people shot in a civilian incident in U.S. history. None of the first arriving police officers heard any shots. From interviews and time estimates, it appears that the shooting had stopped, and the gunman had exited the theater just as police started arriving. A few people were wounded in Theater 8, adjacent to Theater 9. They were struck by bullets or shotgun pellets that had gone through the common wall of the 2 theaters. Figure shows where some of the rounds entered Theater 8. Figure 9. Markings showing wall where shots entered Theater 8 from theater. Audience reaction. The early minutes of the Batman movie contained shooting and loud noise. Some people in the audience had dressed in costumes for the movie opening. When the shooter opened fire, some at first thought it was a stunt. But with people visibly wounded and screaming in pain, a gas in the air that smarted the eyes, and shots being fired, it quickly became apparent that the shooting was real. A moviegoer made the first 911 call at 12:38 a.m. Seconds later, of the theater also called 911. It is unclear exactly how much time elapsed from the start of shooting to the first 911 call, but it is likely to have been well under a minute. Witnesses said they recovered from the initial shock and realized it was a real shooting in seconds. Most of the audience started to flee once they understood the shooting to be real. Most of the audience startedly accelerated the flight from Theater 9 and triggered an exodus from all the other theaters in the complex. The result was a deluge of over 1,200 people fleeing the theaters, including many wounded. Most fled out to the lobby from which they had entered. Video of the early moments of the exodus show a scene that was less panic than rapid movement of people who were clearly scared and shocked. Some held doors open for others. Some assisted those who were hurt, in shock, or just upset. Most of the audience was young and in reasonably good physical condition. Few seemed to fall or stumble. No one was injured by trampling or by others fleeing, to everyone's credit. Many moviegoers fleeing the theaters were covered in blood and tissue from the victims. The first responders and even some of the victims themselves were not sure if they were injured. Several moviegoers acted heroically. 3 of the 12 victims killed were young men who gave up their lives, shielding friends sitting near them. Rather than rushing out, several people in the audience in Theater 9 took cover, getting low behind seats to get out of the line of fire. No one in the theater other than the shooter was found to have been armed. No one attempted to attack the shooter. Recommendations. While the scope of this review did not include advice to theater owners, we felt obliged to offer the following suggestions. 1. Alarms and emergency announcement capability in theaters. To improve patron safety, theaters should consider putting alarms on emergency or secondary exits, and preferably monitor them by video surveillance. Having a voice communication system to inform people about emergencies also is important in an emergency. Additionally, theater complexes should be able to quickly switch off the movies and turn on the lights in each theater to facilitate exiting and improving visibility in an emergency. Generally, these are not common features in theaters today. Besides cost, the downside is that if leaving through an exit sets off an alarm, some might be tempted to do it for fun. 2. Public education. Inform the public on appropriate measures if caught in a shooting situation. Nationally, thousands of people have been exposed each year to small and large-scale shooting incidents. There are likely to be more. The key guidance to offer is, flee if you can. If not possible, hide or shelter. If neither is possible, consider attacking the shooter, preferably in concert with others, throwing anything handy to distract or injure him. The Houston Police Department has an excellent free instructional video for the public on what to do in a shooting situation. The West Virginia State Police have been training office workers in Charleston. Aurora Police Department and other departments in the Denver region should consider this education and enlist the media to help disseminate it. Chapter 3, Police Response to Theater. In light of experience from multiple victim shooting incidents in the past 2 decades, widely accepted police strategy is to attempt to quickly neutralize an active shooter go to the shooter, and do not wait for special teams or special equipment or a large force for attack. The longer the perpetrator is left to shoot, the more people may be killed or injured. Experience shows that in a mass shooting, the shooter often stops only when the police officers arrive. The shooter then often commits suicide, is shot, surrenders, or is apprehended. Officers are expected to take risks to stop an active shooter, especially in an incident like the Century 16 theater shooting in which 15 to 20 people were being shot per minute. Members of the Aurora Police Department followed the active shooter strategy, acting bravely and professionally as they encountered an unknown shooting situation with multiple seriously injured victims. Police units arrived very quickly, less than 3 minutes from the first call. The suspect was observed by police within 5 minutes, then challenged and then placed under arrest within 7 minutes. All victims with survivable injuries were saved. Initial dispatch and command. The Aurora Public Safety Communications Department received the first report of a shooting at the Century 16 Theater at 12:38 a.m., the early hours of a Friday morning. A little over 1 minute later, 2 patrol units were assigned to respond to a call of shots fired. The communication center broadcast that at least one person had been shot and there's hundreds of people just running around. Lieutenant Jad Lanigan, the duty lieutenant, radioed communications to send all available cars and to broadcast this request citywide on all district dispatch frequencies, not just to District 2. The Century 16 Theater is less than a mile from the District 2 police station, which is co-located with police headquarters at 15,001 East Alameda Parkway. Figure 10 is an aerial photo showing the distance from the theater to the District 2 police station. Figure 10. Distance from Century 16 Theater to police station. At the time of the initial dispatch, most officers from the 3 p.m. 1 a.m. swing shift were at the station, preparing for debriefing and relief. The graveyard shift had reported for duty at 10 p.m. and was in the field. Also on duty were several officers assigned to the summer task force, the extra unit formed to increase police presence at night during the busy summer season. In total, there were 126 Aurora police officers available across the city at that moment, only a few of whom were handling calls. The overlapping shifts and the presence of the summer task force added approximately 54 officers and their supervisors to what normally would have been available. Initial arriving units, shortly after the dispatcher broadcast all available cars, switched to channel and start for Century 16 Theater, active shooter. There was a follow-up advisory that someone is still shooting inside theater number 9. By a little after 12:40 a.m., slightly more than 2 minutes after the first 911 call, officers started to arrive at the theater. They encountered injured victims and began requesting medical assistance. Officers reported that some type of gas had been released in Theater 9 and requested gas masks. Because of the number of officers available and the proximity to the district station, multiple Aurora police units were on scene within minutes of the initial calls for help. More units kept arriving each minute. Figure 11 shows the rapid buildup of police units. There were 6 units on scene within a little over 2 minutes, and 14 units within 4 minutes. Some officers immediately entered the theater while others set up a perimeter around the theater to contain the area and stop the possible escape of a suspect. Figure 11. APD's response to Century 16 Theater. While a few police units reported their arrival on scene by radio, most did not, in accordance with good radio practice. First-line Aurora police vehicles are equipped with a global positioning system, automatic vehicle locator, that records time and position if the officer's mobile terminal is logged on. Therefore, some arrival times are known from GPS AVL records rather than from radio traffic. However, AVL could not be used to find the arrival time of many of the officers who were going off shift and not logged on to AVL, nor officers working off-duty jobs and driving their personal vehicles. Nevertheless, though not all arrival times are known precisely, there is no question as to the rapidity of the response and force build-up. Many in the initial wave of police units arrived almost simultaneously, entering the theater area through different access points. Based on response data and our interviews, it appears that Lieutenant Jad Lanigan, Officer Roland Albert, and Officer John Gonzalez were among the first to reach the Theater 9 auditorium. Officer Gonzalez is a SWAT team member and a lead gas technician, but because he was going off duty and had unloaded his car, he did not have any special equipment with him. In spite of that, he and Lieutenant Lanigan intended to enter the theater auditorium immediately and to go where the shooting had been reported. They did not hear shots still being fired when they were outside the door to Theater 9. When they discovered that an unknown chemical agent had been released in the theater, they decided to briefly delay entry until gas masks were available. Officer Gonzalez quickly obtained a gas mask from another officer and, with the assistance of additional officers who now had arrived on the scene, made entry into Theater 9. Inside, they did not see a shooter or hear any shooting. They then began to assist victims. As other officers arrived at Theater 9, Lieutenant Lanigan quickly changed from first responder duties to assuming command. He operated from a position near the concession stands in the main lobby of the theater building. Another of the first officers on the scene was Everett Williams. He was off-duty working a side job directing traffic at a road construction site near the theater. He was in full police uniform, including weapon and police radio. He ran to the front of the building, where he saw wounded people streaming from the theater, and he immediately knew it was bad. He was torn between stopping to assist them and neutralizing the shooter. He called for rescue. As a trained member of the emergency response team, Williams knew the procedures for responding to an active shooter. He drew his service weapon and entered the theater. The fire alarm was sounding, adding to the confusion. The second command officer to arrive was Lieutenant Mike Daly, commander of the SWAT team. He was on duty and estimated that he arrived in front of the theater approximately 6 minutes after the initial dispatch was made. Many officers were already on scene and more arriving every minute. Lieutenants Daly and Lanigan decided to divide command duties, with Lanigan taking command of operations inside the theater building and Daly assuming command outside. When senior police officials arrived at the theater later in the incident, they left this command structure in place. The arriving officers were expected to use good judgment and self-deploy based on their training and knowledge of strategy for response to a shooting incident. They were not to stage and wait for ICS to be set up, and incident commanders to tell them where to go or what to do. As officers arrived and assessed the situation, they took self-assigned positions around the theater. Several officers we interviewed said they operated under the philosophy of go where you think needed rather than wait for instructions on where to deploy. They did not know clearly what was happening except from what they saw, the limited transmissions on their radio channel, and what they learned from one another on site. The officers quickly established a perimeter around the theater to cover all sides, cordoning it off to stop the perpetrator's escape. Sergeant Gerald Johnsgard, a patrol supervisor, was about 8 to 10 blocks away from the theater when the first call came in. He self-dispatched and considered his first duty as containment of the shooter. Upon arrival, he saw police vehicles in the front of the theater, so he deployed to the rear, stationing himself on an elevation that commanded a view of the east and south sides, including, as it turned out, the exit used by the shooter. The sergeant was informed by a water construction crew nearby of a woman who had been shot. He advised them to take cover and put pressure on her wound. Sergeant Stephen Redfern, the summer task force supervisor, was in the north end of Aurora when the first call came in. Ultimately, he and 7 or 8 members of his task force arrived at the theater. The sergeant drove to the rear of the theater, going over a curb to get there. As will be discussed, what may seem a minor point, officers driving over curbs played a surprisingly important role in this incident. Ambulances and fire vehicles were hesitant to drive over curbs, and that added to their difficulty in reaching victims in a situation where there was severe congestion from vehicles and pedestrians. And ambulances were being intercepted by victims needing aid before the EMS units could reach the more seriously injured patients. Paths to some victims required driving over curbs. Police and firefighters continued to encounter wounded people spreading out from the theater in many directions. Sergeant Johnsgard had arrived just before the shooter exited the theater. He saw a person dressed in black come out the exit, looking at first glance like a SWAT team member wearing armor, helmet, and gas mask. This person approached a white car, the only one parked behind the theater. Believing the individual to be a possible suspect, Sergeant Johnsgard targeted him. Thus, was in the sights of a patrol rifle from almost the moment he left the theater. Many officers who went into the theater were not equipped to deal with gas. Most also were not equipped with rifles. None of the first officers responding wore high threat or rigid body armor. None had combat medic type bags or improved first aid kits for treating wounded. One officer had self-contained breathing apparatus experience from his military service and was assisted by fire personnel in getting an SCBA in a theater with the unknown chemical agent present in the air. Apprehension of suspect. Officers Jason Sweeney and Jason Oviatt arrived independently of each other, self-deploying to the rear of the theater shortly after Sergeant Johnsgard took his position. They too saw someone with gas mask and body armor near the only car parked there. Sweeney and Oviatt were immediately suspicious because the combat gear was not of the type used by the department SWAT team. According to the statement in support of a warrantless arrest, filed by Detective Craig J. Appel on July 20, 2012, when the suspect was apprehended, there was a black semi-automatic pistol with a green laser sight on the roof of his vehicle, an assault rifle on the ground near the rear theater exit, and a semi-automatic pistol in the vehicle. Both handguns were loaded. The 2 officers challenged the suspect and arrested him without incident at approximately 12:45 a.m., about 7 minutes after the first call. They handcuffed him and put him into a police car. In the course of initial questioning on the scene, the suspect told them he had acted alone and that he had explosives at his apartment on Paris Street. That statement triggered what was essentially a second event, the investigation and ultimate disarming of improvised explosive devices and incendiaries in the suspect's apartment, which will be discussed in Chapter 4. Search of theaters. As more wounded were coming out of the rear of the theater, officers became concerned about the possible existence of a second shooter. Sergeant Johnsgard entered the theater from the rear exit with 4 other officers he gathered. They began to search the theater. Another squad, led by Sergeant Brian Butler, was coming in from the front of the theater. The theater was still dark, the movie still playing, and the fire alarm still sounding. A tear gas-like haze floated inside. The 2 teams found a horrific environment, many wounded victims, some clearly fatal, a great deal of blood and body tissue. People moaning, people still evacuating, people hiding behind seats. A shotgun was lying in the aisle, and large quantities of spent ammunition casings were on the floor. Several officers said it was like a battle scene from Iraq or Afghanistan. The gas in the theater was enough to cause discomfort, but not disablement. Because it was not clear how many shooters there were, or whether there were explosives or other harmful substances still in the theater, the police searchers proceeded cautiously but without hesitation. As previously noted, the first officer to enter Theater 9 was a gas technician and able to quickly obtain a gas mask, but most officers went into Theater 9 without waiting for gas masks, or going back to their cars for body armor or long guns. Officers searched and researched Theater 9 and the adjacent theaters until satisfied there were no additional threats from shooters, gas, or explosives. Police said they had a sharp memory of the Columbine High School shooting incident in Littleton, Colorado 13 years earlier, where there were 2 shooters. This memory and knowledge that the shooter said he had explosives in his apartment led police to take a high degree of caution after their initial attack into the theater. At some point after police were inside, the theater manager put the lights on and stopped the movie. After wounded patrons were cleared from the theater, police, including by then Arapahoe County Sheriff bomb technicians, searched for hazardous devices that the shooter might have left behind. Crime scene investigators were called in to photograph the scene and to collect evidence. These actions delayed formal identification of the deceased and hence the notification of victims' families, but were necessary. We discussed the coroner and other family notification and assistance issues in Chapter 9, dealing with the aftermath. Emergency medical assistance. Inside the theater, the first officers into the theater did not stop to triage or assist the wounded for fear of additional shooters or explosives, nor were they trained to provide emergency medical services. Appropriately, triage started inside the theater only after initial searches for second shooters and explosives. Officer Paul Jareth, a SWAT team member and one of the 2 Aurora SWAT paramedics, was at the jail when the report of the incident was broadcast. He immediately responded as one more patrol officer answering the general call for assistance, reaching the theater about 5 minutes later at approximately 12:44 a.m., not wanting to add to radio traffic. He did not report on scene, so the incident commander did not immediately know of the arrival of a paramedic inside the theater. Jareth arrived with gas mask, rifle, and ballistics protection, but left his paramedic equipment in his patrol car. He first went to Theater 8 looking for another shooter, directed by moviegoers in the lobby who saw some people being wounded in that theater. They did not know that the victims in Theater 8 had been hit by shots coming through the wall from Theater 9. When Jareth had determined that Theater 8 was secure, he moved to Theater 9, joining other officers and making sure the theater was safe and no suspects were hiding. Then he switched to essentially a paramedic role. As a paramedic, Jareth first assisted another officer to carry a victim outside, then retrieved his medical kit from his car and began determining who was alive and who was dead, prioritizing the order of victims to be carried out of the theater. He also suggested hospitals to which victims should be taken, knowing their capacities and capabilities. In keeping with best practices in a mass casualty incident when there is only one triage provider, he did not treat victims until finishing triage. Jareth's timely arrival was extremely fortunate. Because he had completed medical assessments inside the theater, fire department paramedics did not need to enter the building and did not have to deal with decisions on the level of risk or police escort. Victims with survivable wounds already had been evacuated. As will be discussed in more detail in Chapter 5, the fire EMS response to the theater was slowed by congestion in the parking lot, and by units being intercepted by wounded before they were able to get to the theater building. Police officers had carried or assisted living victims to triage locations immediately outside the theater building. One severely wounded victim was carried out using a backboard obtained from an ambulance. Because of continued concern about additional shooters and also potential explosives, police did not specifically advise the fire department that the theater area neither was safe, nor did police tell fire that the shooter had been arrested. However, it is unlikely the police would have continued to make multiple requests for emergency medical assistance if they thought the scene was unsafe. The concept of a police fire-coordinated high-risk extraction protocol had not yet been formalized, and only some officers were familiar with the concept. The need to clearly define threat levels and to distinguish between a hot zone with active shooters and a warm zone where there is concern but no immediate threat will be discussed further in the fire EMS and the incident command chapters. Fire department personnel did not enter the theater because the wounded there had already been triaged, and the fire department was told there were only triage category black victims remaining. AFD resources focused on the treatment and transport of category red patients. But while not critical here, the confusion regarding level of risk could well have been critical were it not for the happenstance of the police paramedic responding to the theater. Fire departments must communicate with police on when and how to effect entry after an initial shooting or bombing is over. Outside the theater, after finishing interior triage, Officer Jareth went outside and triaged victims gathered at the police staging site behind the theater. He did not treat any victims there. The fire department had by then established a second triage area behind the theater, and he coordinated with them on patient transport priorities. 3 victims were loaded in each of 2 available ambulances. Many officers and EMTs outside the theater by now were being besieged by wounded victims and people requesting medical attention for other victims. Most Aurora police officers had not been trained beyond basic first aid, nor did they have any medical supplies in their vehicles. They helped as best they could when fire rescue personnel were not nearby, and there was uncertainty as to whether they were coming to help a particular victim. Most, if not all, requests by police for EMS aid were made to the communications center, creating delays and information loss for the fire EMS rescuers. Officers calling dispatch for assistance could not be sure their message resulted in any rescue action and could not tell if sirens or ambulances nearby were responding to their call or another. Several officers reported that they encountered wounded people, called for rescue, but no one came. Because unified command or a single overall incident commander had not been established, individual police officers radioed for medical assistance without coordinating with an incident commander. This resulted in duplicate requests, unnecessary radio traffic, and inability to control and prioritize use of EMS resources. ICS and Unified Command are discussed further in Chapter 7, Incident Command System and Emergency Operations Centers. Ambulance access, the traffic in the parking lot, and parked police vehicles blocking roads made it difficult to get fire apparatus and ambulances through the maze of vehicles and curbs to get close to the theater and the wounded. Police Incident Command knew that access for fire and EMS vehicles was clear on the south side of the theater, but it required driving over a low median strip. As best we can tell from interviews with many police and fire first responders, the police did not provide access directions or instructions for fire EMS, assuming they could navigate their own way through the parked cars as had police vehicles. On the other hand, Fire Command did not ask for directions or assistance to facilitate ambulance access to some clusters of victims. Fire Command had delegated transportation to their ICS division supervisors, who did not solve the maze. Fire apparatus and ambulances have different suspensions than police cars, and typically are not driven over curbs or raised landscape areas, which compounded perceptions of inaccessibility. There was a swale behind the theater that would have been difficult for fire and EMS vehicles to cross, but that should not have interfered with access from East Exposition. Police transport of victims, when ambulances did not become available quickly enough, decisions started to be made by police and then firefighters to transport some of those wounded to hospitals by police cars. Some police car transports of victims just had the one officer driving the car. Some police car transports had 2 officers, but they did not have training or equipment to care for victims en route. At least 27 victims were transported to hospitals in police cars, with at least one officer making multiple round trips. If police officers had not decided to transport victims without waiting for ICS approval, which was outside of existing protocols at the time, a few more victims likely would have died, according to the hospitals. The police incident commander understood the situation and soon approved further use of police cars for transports in light of the problems in getting ambulances to patients or patients to ambulances. More than one officer said that if they had known that fire EMS was not going to arrive quickly, they would have made the decision to transport by police car sooner. Fire department officials said they were overwhelmed with the incident at that time, and not all requests for ambulances could be honored even if they could have found a route through the maze. Triage and medical care are complex in this event and will be discussed in more detail in Chapter 5, Emergency Medical Services. As will be discussed, rapid transport of gunshot wounds in police cars, rather than waiting for ambulances, may become a more accepted practice nationally, the latest emergency medicine research on dealing with. Gunshot wounds pre-hospital is to get them to the hospital ASAP in police cars if necessary, which is ironic in light of the furor over the police transports in this incident. Crowd management. As enough officers arrived to set up a perimeter around the theater building, search its interior, and help tend to the wounded, the next major police concern was stopping moviegoers from leaving the area in order to question them as witnesses. They were also simultaneously checking for more injured victims among the crowd, looking for possible additional suspects or accomplices, looking for potential booby traps or explosive devices outside the theater, possibly in vehicles in the parking lots, dealing with the media in the parking lots attempting to cover the incident. Parking lots, the theater complex was surrounded by parking lots intended for the patrons. Beyond them were other parking lots for the nearby mall. Virtually all of the movie patrons had arrived by car and parked in one of the adjacent lots. Figure 12 shows the theater and parking lots. Figure 12, Century 16 Theater and surrounding parking lots. Lieutenant Daly, who as noted had assumed command of the areas outside the theater, said that his first efforts were aimed at caring for the wounded, clearing the crowds, identifying witnesses, and coordinating mutual aid. There were surprisingly few, if any, onlookers coming to the scene, probably because of the late night time of the incident. The lieutenant was able to change his focus to detaining people who left the theater so they could be questioned as witnesses. Most of the theatergoers had not yet had time to get to their vehicles and leave in the heavy parking lot traffic before traffic control points were established. Lieutenant Daly directed officers controlling egress to request voluntary cooperation for questioning, or to identify potential witnesses for later contact. Lieutenant Daly was also concerned about secondary devices being inside or outside the theater, possibly in parked cars, and ordered police to move the crowd away from the theater to more open spaces. He remarked, as other officers did, that he had the Columbine incident in mind and the lessons learned from it. The Arapahoe County Bomb Squad and FBI bomb technicians who had arrived by now were asked to search the suspect's car and some vehicles in the parking lot. Officers from a K-9 unit used bomb detection dogs to check other cars in the parking lot. 2 cars were found to have suspicious packages but were cleared. Lieutenant Daly also had responsibility to organize the mutual aid forces who were responding in large numbers from other jurisdictions. Since no staging or reporting areas for arriving mutual aid police had been established, most outside agency officers drove directly to the theater parking lots and were assigned from there. The mutual aid police vehicles contributed to the congestion in the parking lots. Sorting and transporting patrons, eventually the outside police incident commander identified an area in which to gather the patrons of Theater 9. Police designated other parking lot areas for patrons of each other theater as well. Although some theatergoers had left, the vast majority were still present at the time this corralling effort was organized, and the parking lots cordoned off. Police later appealed over the media for others who were at the theater to voluntarily come in for interviews, and many did. Most of the corralled patrons from Theater 9 and Theater 8 were transported by bus or van to nearby Gateway High School, where a large interview team of about 30 Aurora detectives and FBI agents had set up. The Regional Transportation District laudably provided buses and drivers in the middle of the night to do this transport. Movie patrons were interviewed as witnesses to the event, not as potential suspects. Each was photographed in front of a whiteboard containing their personal information and given a number for further identification. Key witnesses were interviewed by Aurora police detectives. Others were interviewed by FBI agents. In total, about 400 people were interviewed. Because police and FBI records are processed differently, the exact number of people interviewed in the school could not be readily determined. Some patrons from the other theater auditoriums were questioned briefly in the parking lots. Generally, patrons were cooperative despite being tired and in shock at what they had witnessed. Understandably, many taken to the Gateway School for questioning started getting impatient, as they had to wait hours to be interviewed. The interview process lasted through the night and into the morning, until approximately 8 a.m., besides investigators from Major Crimes Homicide. Aurora detectives were called in from every other Aurora investigative unit to conduct the interviews. Mutual aid forces, including officers from the Colorado State Patrol and the Inglewood Police Department, provided security during the interview process. One must realize that it still was not certain that there was only a lone gunman at this time. Interviewers were collecting eyewitness accounts, but also thinking about whether there might be suspects mixed in with the crowd in the parking lots. As it turned out, there were none. Additionally, no weapons were found on any theater patron other than the shooter. Mall search in the early morning hours of the incident, the door to the main shopping mall near the theater complex was found to be unlocked. That raised concerns about the possibility of another shooter hiding or planting explosives in the mall. Lieutenant Daly assigned much of Denver police contingent, the largest mutual aid group, to search and secure the mall, under the command of a DPD SWAT lieutenant. This sub-incident also included other mutual aid officers and K-9s. The Denver helicopter viewed the mall roof. The unlocked door turned out to be an innocuous error, but anything out of the ordinary was evaluated as possibly adding to the threat. Once the suspect said he had explosives in his apartment, there had to be concern about other devices he had not disclosed. Police Incident Command. Normally, as noted earlier, Aurora has 3 district police watch commanders on duty. One is designated as the duty lieutenant, with citywide responsibility for any major incidents on his watch. A police captain or commander is always on call but may be off duty at home, as was the case at the time of the incident. Although Section 12. 9 halves of the APD Directives Manual, entitled Active Critical Incidents, states that the department has adopted the National Incident Management System for the control and coordination of critical incidents. In day-to-day practice, the department does not use a formal incident command system. Police department staff assume that the duty lieutenant or other ranking officer will be the incident commander for a major incident. As also noted earlier, the initial incident commander for the theater shooting was Lieutenant Lanigan, and the incident command post was wherever he was located. After Lieutenant Daly arrived, Lanigan maintained overall command but requested Daly to take charge of the actions outside the theater. On the evening of the shooting, captain, Jim Pushian, was the on-call duty captain and Deputy Chief Jones the duty executive. Both responded to the theater from home after being notified of the shooting. Deputy Chief Jones received notification at approximately 12:50 a.m. that 20 to 30 people had been shot. Shortly thereafter, Lieutenant Paul O'Keefe, acting commander of the Investigations Bureau, was advised of the incident and directed to deploy his investigators. Police Chief Oates, Deputy Chief Jones, and Captain Pushian arrived sometime prior to 1:30 a.m. Most victims had been transported by then. Because of the high volume of tactical radio traffic, Captain Pushian had not radioed while en route that he would be assuming command upon his arrival, as he had intended to do. When he viewed the situation firsthand, he did not feel any change was needed in the inside-outside command structure that had been established, and left it to continue functioning as it was. Eventually, 3 command post vehicles were used at the scene from Aurora Police, Aurora Fire Department, and nearby Greenwood Village. By the time Captain Pushian was ready to set up a more permanent command post, the primary Aurora command vehicle had been preempted for public information activities. He relocated to a regional command vehicle that was not as suitably equipped to support his command needs. In hindsight, there were some second thoughts about allowing public information to take over the command vehicle, but it did facilitate that important function. Strategic Reserve, no Strategic Police Reserve was held back for a potential second incident. All available units were sent to the theater. Police Command wanted to make sure they had enough officers to deal with the large shooting event and the more than 1,200 patrons in the parking lots. With little other police activity going on in the city, police officials believed it would have been relatively easy for even a large number of officers to detach from the theater scene for a second incident if necessary, and so they decided to focus their resources on the major incident at hand. Another factor in this decision was that the streets were relatively empty, so travel to another part of the city would not have taken as long as at other times. Also, Denver and other nearby agencies had large police forces that could have assisted in another major incident. Essentially, there was a second incident, dealing with explosive devices at the suspect's apartment on Paris Street, and a significant number of officers indeed were rapidly redeployed there after serving at the theater scene. Police fire communications, the police department was unable or did not know how to communicate directly with the fire department in spite of a fully interoperable radio system. The fire incident commander was not immediately aware of the magnitude of the incident and did not have an accurate picture of the risk level. Critical content was lost as information was relayed from police to fire through the communications center. The Aurora Police had multiple talk groups available. Primary dispatch talk groups were used for communications inside and outside the theater during the first hours of the incident. Another channel, Blue Southeast, was used by the communications center to establish contact with responding mutual aid units. Lieutenant Lanigan initially wanted all the primary dispatch talk groups to be patched together, but later changed his mind and assigned one talk group to inside operations and one to outside operations. He lamented that he could not communicate directly with the fire department or with responding mutual aid units. Police and fire radios contain mutual system and talk groups. However, it is cumbersome to switch between police and fire channels, and the scan feature is not sufficiently reliable to prevent communications gaps. Additionally, police and fire department personnel did not participate in regular communications interoperability drills. The Joint Command communications problem contributed to not getting ambulances to victims that were reachable by police cars. Police-fire personnel relations suffered for months after the incident. Some police officers openly criticized the fire department for not responding adequately to calls for rescue during the incident, without realizing the communications problem, and that police did not escort fire personnel nor help fire personnel figure out how to get through the maze of vehicles. On the other hand, the fire department did not take the initiative to adequately scout the situation and solve the access problem. The communication department had access to Everbridge, an interactive communications and notification system, but did not use it to make notifications of situation status to other police and city staff personnel. As a result, the police incident commander and the communications department supervisor personally had to make notifications while trying to manage a difficult situation. It appears that the communications center personnel in 2012 did not know how to patch Blue Southeast to Aurora PD1 or PD2, or the equipment was not configured to do so. At one point, the Aurora Communications Center, at the request of Lieutenant Lanigan, asked the Lakewood Communications Center to make the patch, but Lakewood did not have that capability either. Current communications department staff demonstrated to us how Blue Southeast can be patched to Aurora talk groups. Liaison with fire department. There was no unified command at this incident. Late in the incident, there was a fire liaison positioned with the police commander. Earlier requests for a face-to-face meeting between the fire department and the police department incident commander went unanswered. The external police incident commander said he requested the acting battalion chief, who was fire incident commander, to meet him in front of the theater, but that did not happen. The fire department rationale was that the acting battalion chief did not want to abandon his command post per ICS NIMS policy, but no one was asking Battalion 1 to abandon his command, just to move it. Battalion 1 had assumed the combined actions of Aurora Police, Fire, and Public Safety Communications saved all the injured who had suffered survivable wounds. Police apprehended the shooter immediately upon arrival at the scene. These optimum results were obtained thanks to many individual police officers and firefighters making sound emergency decisions under. Overall, there probably could not have been much better deployment and results than the Aurora Police achieved. They deployed on the fly, with self-deployments initially, then gradually implementing more formal incident command. The one large exception to the success was the inadequate relationship with fire department command during the key part of the incident. But that did not affect the outcome, at least not this time. This incident gives additional evidence that rapid response to active shooters is imperative. 15 to 20 victims were being shot per minute for about 4 minutes. Every minute counts in reporting and responding to an incident. The training and exercises conducted for an active shooter response helped contribute to the successful outcome. Individual officers understood the strategy and tactics, which enabled them to self-deploy to maximum effect without needing micromanagement from incident command. A massive, rapid police response was possible, in part because the shooting occurred during shift change, on a weekday midnight when there was little other police or fire activity, and at a location close to police headquarters and hospitals. Police and fire commanders did not establish a unified command during the first hour and did not communicate effectively using available radio systems in the initial critical minutes of response, triage, and transport. No procedures were in place to ensure face-to-face contact or direct communications between police and fire incident commanders. Access routes for ambulances were not adequately identified and kept clear. Police officers generally could not move police vehicles not assigned to them because the cars are not keyed alike. There were difficulties in keeping mutual aid agencies informed on the incident specifics. The agencies could communicate with the Aurora Communications Center using Blue Southeast, but could not be patched to Aurora police talk groups. SWAT team paramedics are few in number in Aurora, as in most police departments of similar size. One cannot count on having a SWAT paramedic available as soon as needed. Police in Aurora and most departments have depended on their fire or EMS department to provide medical assistance for gunshot wounds. But these wounds to civilians or to police themselves may need immediate attention, possibly in a hot zone before fire paramedics are allowed in. This raises the need for more training and equipment for police for tactical emergency medicine. Law enforcement officers from the State Patrol, most surrounding jurisdictions, and the FBI and ATF responded to the scene. This was possible from previous regional training, participating in regional exercises and joint task forces, and personal relationships that had been established. When the neighboring communities, state and federal agencies were called, they responded immediately, in force, with the right types of personnel, and stayed until no longer needed. Police received excellent cooperation from the non-public safety departments in Aurora, notably the buses and drivers provided to move eyewitnesses to a nearby school for interviews. Recommendations. 1. Pre-incident planning. Revise pre-incident planning and training for an active shooter or bomber. Aurora police had paid great attention to this planning prior to the incident and have been refining their approaches in light of the lessons learned. Police and departments small as well as large must plan in advance for a large-scale critical incident response, including pre-planned mutual aid and mutual assistance. Such planning should include establishing joint command with fire, building diagrams, internal contact telephone numbers, mutual aid staging locations, and communications procedures. 2. Unified command. Plan and practice unified command for complex incidents. The Aurora police and fire departments have changed procedures and have trained on active shooter and other major emergencies, including how to ensure there will be face-to-face contact between police and fire commanders. Joint police-fire training has been approved for the rapid deployment of 4-person combat medical treatment and extraction teams. Radio procedures also have been changed in an attempt to improve police-fire communications. 3. Identifying incident commander. Clearly identify who is the incident commander. At least one mutual aid command officer advised that due to the presence of many high-ranking Aurora police commanders, he had difficulty in determining who was in charge and to whom he should report. This problem was compounded by lack of a designated staging area and staging officer. The incident commander should announce his status and location on all pertinent radio talk groups, or have the information rebroadcast by the communications center. As higher-ranking staff members arrive, they can assume command at their option. ICS command vests help in identification. 4. SWAT paramedics. Train several more fire or police personnel as SWAT paramedics. Dispatch SWAT paramedics to active shooting incidents where victims may be in the hot zone. The location of SWAT paramedics on duty should be known to the extent possible. SWAT paramedics should report their arrival on scene. 5. Ambulance access. Keep paths open for ambulances and discuss access issues with fire EMS as they occur. Likewise, fire EMS should actively seek access routes. It cannot be assumed that if one police car finds a path to a victim, other fire and police units will be able to do so too. Ambulance access should be a high priority task of police and fire incident command, but may get lost as the first attention of police is stopping and apprehending the shooter. Factors to consider for facilitating access. Initial parking of police vehicles. Repositioning police vehicles, which would be easier if the department uses universal car keys. Universal keys have their pros and cons, but many departments use them. Further research is needed on how to handle this with chip-controlled vehicles, towing or pushing civilian vehicles out of the way, determining in pre-plans and purchase decisions whether ambulances and fire vehicles can be driven over curbs, educate fire and ambulance drivers as to what heights of curbs and off-road terrain are likely to be traversable, familiarization of fire, police, and ambulance crews with street and parking lot geography. Having a police vehicle lead ambulances up to triage areas. Sending pictures or maps of the parking lots or street configuration in real time using photos from helicopters, remotely piloted vehicles, or fixed-wing aircraft. Using Pathfinder vehicles to show the path through congestions. Once one vehicle figures out how to get through a maze, the path can be sent to ambulances or other vehicles using apps on smartphones, or possibly via email from the Pathfinder to the communication center for relaying to others. See example in figure 13% of A, recorded by a smartphone app and emailed to another, a demonstration made by the project review team. Figure 13, example of recording a vehicle track. 6, wearing armor. In addition to wearing protective vests, uniformed officers should carry active shooter armor kits. The Department of Justice requires patrol use of protective vests if DOJ subsidized their purchase, but there is no requirement for additional ballistics protection. If the shooter's weapon had not malfunctioned, Aurora police would have arrived while the shooter was using a high-powered semi-automatic rifle. Rapid arrival and a policy of confronting a shooter increased the need for protective equipment. 7, tactical medical kit. Officers assigned to patrol should have a tactical medical kit. While the main motivation is to be able to assist wounded officers, the skills and equipment can be used for civilians as well. At the Tucson AZ shooting incident on January 8, 2011, in which Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and several other people were shot, lives were probably saved because the Tucson police had combat medikits and training which they used to attend to some of the gunshot wounds. Since the Aurora theater shooting, a medical kit has been developed for Aurora officers. The department established a training schedule, with priority given to patrol and school resource officers who are most likely to be involved in active shooter incidents. Details on the kit are discussed in Chapter 5.8. Gas masks. Police should broaden their training on use of gas masks, if not already done. Gas masks can protect officers from hostile gas munitions, as well as gas munitions they deploy themselves. 9. Reducing stressors. Reduce noise and light stressors at incident scenes as soon as possible. Sound and darkness add to confusion and make it difficult to identify hostiles. They also may hinder evacuations and search and rescue efforts. Movie and alarm shutoffs and switches for theater lights would be useful for public safety personnel. Theater personnel should not be expected to stay behind and operate shutoffs in a hostile environment. 10. Staging mutual aid. Stage mutual aid assistance forces when their help is not needed for the active shooting portion of the incident. Establish the staging area remote from the incident scene. Assign a staging officer from the primary jurisdiction. The staging officer under NIMS ICS guidelines may direct specific assignments. Mutual aid forces would be dispatched from the staging area. If the shooting had taken place on the border of Aurora, mutual aid units might have been closest, and in that case should follow the same strategy the primary jurisdiction uses. Prior agreements should be reached regarding the authority of outside agency supervisors and their ability to direct officers from agencies other than their own. Air support. Develop agreements for air support for critical incidents. Consider procurement of a low-cost remotely piloted vehicle. Many studies have shown that airborne monitoring can increase safety of pursuits, help set up perimeters to contain suspects, respond quickly to criminal activity, and assist in other activities. However, operating rotary or fixed-wing aircraft for surveillance is expensive. The APD does not have independent air support, but is generally able to obtain airborne coverage from the Denver Police Department. Unfortunately, at the time of the Century 16 theater shooting, the Denver helicopter was not immediately available. A relatively new, cost-effective alternative is to use a small helicopter drone that provides aerial imaging for the incident commander. Some cost less than $5,000 and can be operated with no more skill than needed for a model airplane. The images might have been of use to both fire and police command in this incident, and would have been helpful if the event had gone on longer. 12. Incident Command System. Activate the ICS and establish a unified command as soon as possible. The need for formal ICS varies from incident to incident. Activation of ICS does not mean waiting until every element of the ICS system is in place before acting. The main ICS deficiency in this incident was the failure to quickly establish a unified command between Aurora Police and Fire, and a failure to establish a transportation group to coordinate transports. Second Duty Lieutenant. Designate someone not involved in the incident to be responsible for the remainder of the city when the senior commander is focused on a major incident. While Aurora was fortunate to be able to devote virtually all of its police resources to the theater shooting for the first several hours, this will not always be the case. It may be necessary in some incidents to turn over regular patrol operations to mutual aid forces and their commanders, or double up mutual aid officers with Aurora officers. Command post location. Locate the command post at a safe distance and maintain a scene safety zone. Although there was some suspicion that a second shooter may have been involved and the area had not been cleared for explosive devices, the command post and most of the command staff were located directly in front of the theater building. Additionally, witnesses were initially allowed to remain in the general vicinity of the theater parking lot. Had there been a second shooter or explosive device, all of those people would have been in a danger zone. 15. Designate a safety officer. As the incident unfolds, a police command officer not directly involved in management of the incident should be designated as the safety officer responsible for monitoring activities and advising the incident commander if circumstances develop that adversely affect officer safety. This is a routine procedure for fire departments during major incidents. Command vehicles. Specialized command vehicles or trailers should be reserved for commanders to use and not be taken over by public information officers. 17. Automated note-taking. Officers can make use of smartphone note-taking and video capability. One officer reported that he used his cell phone to record witness identification and statements in the theater parking lot. Smartphones also may be used to record the location of evidence and victims or transmit pictures to the command post or police headquarters. In the absence of smartphone technology, officers can notify the communication center on an alternative radio channel or talk group so that CAD notes may be updated to create a permanent record. 18. Building side nomenclature. Harmonize designations for building sides. At this incident, 3 different identification systems were in use compass direction: building sides A, B, C, and D, and building sides 1, 2, 3, and 4. An agreement would be desirable to establish one system for Denver area agencies. 19. Lab mutual aid. Consider use of mutual aid resources to reduce lab overloads. The crime lab became overloaded by the vast amount of evidence collected at the theater and the Paris Street apartment. The ATF laboratory was uniquely well equipped to process gun evidence and could have been tasked more to share the crime lab workload. 20. Officer rest and recovery. Several officers reported being required to return to work with little sleep and limited psychological assistance. When possible, fatigued officers exposed to high levels of trauma should be relieved by officers who were off duty when the incident occurred. As soon as a critical incident is stabilized, assign someone to plan for continuity of operations. 21. Defer reports. Defer report writing until officers have had time to recover. Many officers advised that although exhausted, they followed normal procedures requiring submission of written reports before going off duty. Also, fatigue can impair report quality. 22. Crime scene security. Make sure the scene is secure. One entry control point should be established and records maintained of all persons entering and leaving the crime scene. 23. Decontamination and hydration. Be prepared to set up officer, firefighter, and EMS decontamination and hydration stations. Several officers were covered with blood and did not have access to clean water for washing and drinking. Consider procurement of a suitable cleanup hydration station for use at major fires and police emergencies, if not available from fire rehab vehicles. Chapter 4. Paris Street. When arrested by police officers minutes following the shooting, the suspect told them he had explosives rigged at his apartment. Chapter 4. Paris Street apartment. When arrested by police officers minutes following the shooting, the suspect told them he had explosives rigged at his apartment that would go off if tripped. He lived at 1090 Paris Street, apartment 10, a 3-story residential building in an area surrounded by other multifamily dwellings. Police units, including Aurora SWAT team members and narcotics investigators, were immediately dispatched to secure the area and prepare for bringing in bomb squads. Most of the initially assigned personnel came from the theater, where the majority of on-duty personnel were still working. While clearly tied to the main incident, the Paris Street situation merits its own review. The Tri-Data project team was asked to focus on the coordination of the evacuation and rendering safe process, not the sensitive technical details of the device disarmament. The bomb squad and other agencies' unified approach to the Paris Street incident was exemplary. Their response prevented significant damage to the building and avoided injuries to response personnel and residents. The Paris Street building lies in the Adams County sector of Aurora, and that county's bomb squad has primary responsibility for dealing with the explosives in Aurora. Aurora does not have its own bomb squad. Upon being advised of potential explosive devices, Adams County dispatched their bomb squad, later to be joined by members of other bomb squads, as well as FBI and ATF bomb technicians. Evacuation and security. A team of Aurora police officers arrived at Paris Street at about 1:30 a.m. on July 20. Besides the potential for explosives, officers were concerned that a second suspect might have escaped from the theater and was hiding in or near the apartment. The narcotics investigators, who were among the first to respond, were in plain clothes and able to covertly observe the apartment. Police took steps to immediately secure and then evacuate the building. Officers established a perimeter around the building, setting observation and cover positions, including deployment of a bare tactical vehicle. Observers were positioned on a nearby roof. Police began to evacuate the residents, many of whom had been asleep. A formal ICS was established shortly after the first police units arrived. An Aurora Police Lieutenant, Tom Wilkes, the relief SWAT commander, initially had responded to the theater about 2 a.m., but then was sent to Paris Street to take command of that scene. He requested and received a command post vehicle from neighboring Brighton, Colorado, since the Aurora Mobile Command Post was already committed to the theater. Initial evacuation beginning at the top floor where the shooter lived, and working down through the building, officers knocked on apartment doors and told people to evacuate. Because of the expected presence of explosives and possibility of booby traps, officers had not yet directly approached the shooter's apartment. Officers also believed it might be unsafe to approach apartment 9, located directly across the hall from the suspect's apartment, so an officer threw rocks at that apartment window from outside the building to get the occupants' attention. When the occupants came to the window, they were told to shelter in place until they could be rescued. Some residents of the apartment building did not speak English. A few officers were able to give the alert in Spanish. Some residents spoke an Asian language that was not immediately identified, and either they did not understand what was happening or they did not want to evacuate. Police eventually got them, and all other residents to leave the building, about 16% in total, making it clear they did not have the option of staying. Residents were not told about explosives or the shooting, just that there was an emergency in the building that required they leave immediately. All vehicles in the apartment building parking lot were visually examined contemporaneous with the building evacuation, and later were cleared by bomb detection dogs. At about 6:45 a.m., a decision was made to have the vehicles towed and stored. Further evacuations, the next building to be evacuated was 1685 Paris Street. Residents were told to take whatever personal belongings they might need and evacuate by car if possible. Residents without transportation were driven to the Aurora Police Academy. 2 more buildings in the vicinity also were evacuated. Ultimately, all residents of 11,943 East 17th Avenue and 1686 and 1686 and 1686 and 1690 Paris Street evacuation center displaced residents were transported to the Aurora Police Academy gym by police van, where cots and water were available. Later, Aurora Central High School was set up for the evacuated residents needing extended assistance and who did not have friends or relatives who could shelter them. School officials and the Red Cross assisted police at the evacuation center. After they were evacuated, most apartment residents of the suspect's building were interviewed individually concerning their knowledge of him and his activities. However, little useful information was collected. Slow clear, after all evacuations were completed, the incident commanders were able to start a slow, careful process of checking for explosives and starting the disarming process. Bomb technicians coordinated each step with the unified command team before proceeding to the next. A slow clear team was deployed to check every apartment and every possible storage and concealment area for explosives, hazardous materials, and evidence. The officers used a ballistics blanket for protection and entered apartments and spaces using lockpicks, bolt cutters, or breaching tools as necessary. The interior slow clear process was delayed until concerns about possible explosives on the building roof were resolved. Inside suspect's apartment. Noise disturbance. When the first officers arrived on the third floor, the suspect's apartment door was slightly ajar. According to Communications Center records, at 12:09 a.m., annoyed neighbors had called 911 to report a noise disturbance. One neighbor later told police that she had knocked on the door of apartment 10 in an attempt to get the occupant to stop the noise, but received no response. According to that resident, the loud music continued until approximately 1 a.m. It was later learned that before leaving his apartment, the suspect had set a several-minute delay after which his computer would start to play loud music. Apparently, this was intended to invoke a complaint that would result in a police response. Fortunately, the noise complaint was assigned a low priority by the Communications Center and was not immediately dispatched. Before the disturbance call surfaced in the prioritized dispatch queue, the theater attack had occurred, and the shooter's apartment had been identified as possibly booby-trapped. Because the shooter told police he had explosives in his apartment, great caution was taken in approaching the building. Had the police arrived earlier for the noise complaint and pushed the apartment door open, they could have triggered a potentially deadly explosion or fire. A small surveillance robot operated by the APD SWAT team was maneuvered to a position in front of the suspect's apartment door to watch for any movement. It was still not clear if anyone was in the apartment at this point. To keep the door from swinging open and hitting a possible tripwire, officers tied it off. With the robot in place and the door secured, the police evacuated the previously alerted residents of apartment 9 across the hall. Then all officers exited the building, and the surveillance robot was operated from the bare armored vehicle. Bomb robot. Shortly after the apartment building was evacuated, and with the small surveillance robot in place, the Adams County Bomb Squad deployed their large bomb robot to the front of apartment 10. Continued announcements were made over a police car public address system for anyone in apartment 10 to surrender. When no response was received, a decision was made to use the robot to breach the door. With the bomb robot in place, the small robot was moved to another location where bomb squad activities could be observed through its camera from outside the building. After the apartment door was breached and what appeared to be explosives and tripwires were seen on the robot's video camera, police operations stopped. Further neighborhood evacuations were ordered in light of the multiple significant explosives. After the surrounding neighborhood buildings were evacuated, and the residents moved to a safe place, and additional bomb technicians arrived, it was decided to use a fire department bucket truck to reach the third floor and break out a kitchen window in the shooter's apartment. The presence of explosive incendiary materials, tripwires, and other suspicious items was confirmed. Further observations were made using a pole camera inserted through the broken window, figure 14. Bomb technicians accessed third floor at 1690 Paris Street, apartment 10. As bomb technicians began to understand the nature of what appeared to be numerous improvised explosive devices, fireworks, multiple containers of unknown liquids, electrical wiring, unknown powder of various colors, and small arms ammunition, a three-phase render-safe plan was developed involving the bomb robot and specialized render-safe techniques and tools. Render-safe procedures were temporarily suspended pending a public safety interview with the subject to get more information, and the apartment scene was secured for the night. On July 20, at approximately 3:45 p.m., representatives from the FBI and APD met with the shooter. His information agreed with what was being observed, but could not be totally trusted, and was not relied on in making the render-safe decisions. Besides the explosives in the apartment, the shooter also had placed a boombox in the apartment building dumpster with a 4 at 2 started playing loud music designed to attract the attention of a passerby. A toy car with a remote control transmitter also was placed in the dumpster with a boombox. It is believed that the shooter hoped someone would hear the music and play with the car transmitter that was designed to trigger the explosives in the apartment. The shooter told investigators during the public safety interview that the boombox, toy car, and remote control were diversion devices designed to keep police away from the theater. Someone who was an occasional visitor to the neighborhood found the boombox, but the car and remote were never recovered. Had the shooter's diversion plans worked, it is highly likely that some law enforcement personnel and building residents would have been killed or seriously injured. The extremely dangerous nature of the explosive material was confirmed when it was later detonated at a safe location. At approximately 6:30 a.m. on July 21, 2012, following approval of the render-safe plan by all on-scene commanders, including the Aurora police and fire chiefs and the FBI special agent in charge, phased render-safe operations inside the apartment were commenced. Before each render-safe action was taken, operations stopped until the move was evaluated. This Goslow operational plan was thought to be critically important to get the best consensus for each move. With the neighborhood safe, the bomb squad personnel could go at their own pace and protect themselves as well as the property. Operations progressed smoothly. At 9 a.m., the booby trap was rendered safe. At 11:30 a.m., an electronic control box was disarmed. By 2 p.m., other components had been examined. By 3:30 p.m., all potentially hazardous devices had been rendered safe, and all suspicious items cleared by bomb technicians. Due to the highly dangerous nature and quantity of explosive and incendiary materials found in the apartment, transportation of them in a normal bomb disposal unit was not considered wise. The team opted to use large sand trucks. The AFD Emergency Management Office Coordinator arranged for the City of Aurora Public Works Department to provide 3 trucks on standby. The explosives were taken to a remote location using one of the dump trucks loaded with sand. Law enforcement escorted the loaded truck to the disposal site. At approximately 5:30 p.m., the scene was considered secure and released to the APD for further investigation. Once the incendiary and explosive devices were removed, the apartment could be searched, and computers, computer records, and other information recovered. Robots were used to recover some evidence even before the final disarming. Interagency cooperation. Several agencies were involved in securing the Paris Street area, preparing for possible explosion, and finally disarming and removing the multiple improvised explosive and incendiary devices found in the apartment. The AFD provided fire companies to stand by throughout the Paris Street incident. They were prepared to extinguish any fires caused by an explosion or incendiary device, and to assist anyone wounded. Fire crews set up hose lines to protect the bomb technicians and investigators who entered the apartment. Safety officers were assigned and crews were rotated due to the very hot weather. A rehabilitation unit was brought in. It was agreed that the AFD would immediately take over incident command if there were an explosion or fire. They worked closely with Aurora Police, FBI, and ATF in a unified command structure. Fire officials deployed an aerial fire truck with a bucket to provide a platform for viewing and access into the apartment's interior through the third-floor windows. As previously stated, Aurora does not have its own bomb squad, and was dependent on the other local bomb squads and bomb technicians of federal agencies, but APD was in command of evacuation and security of the subject's apartment building and neighborhood. The FBI bomb experts played a major role in the analysis and disarming of the IEDs. FBI bomb experts from the Denver field office worked closely with Aurora Police, fire, and other bomb squads. Pictures from the robot video camera were transmitted live to the bomb truck, and some images were transmitted to experts at FBI offices in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. When the complexity of the situation became apparent, the FBI sent additional resources to Aurora. ATF agents also provided assistance. Aurora officials and the FBI reported that the county bomb team, city police, city fire commanders, FBI, and ATF worked seamlessly together in this event, exchanging information and ideas on how to proceed with each step. All federal, state, and local bomb technicians attend the same bomb school at Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. They have the same basic training and use the same standard operating procedures. Some individuals have higher level training and more field experience than others do, but they all operate from a common set of concepts and have a common lexicon. In the Denver area, local, state, and federal bomb technicians trained together. All of this facilitated smooth integration of unit operations during critical incidents. Contrary to some initial reports, there were no outside agency bomb technicians who self-dispatched to the scene. Assistance and equipment were offered from the New York City and Los Angeles police departments. Both agencies possess unique experience and equipment and volunteered their experts, but they were not needed. Knowing what capabilities exist throughout the United States is critically important because many bomb squads do not have immediate access to the necessary specialized equipment, and it may need to be transported from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. As in this case, it is important for criminal investigators to rely on bomb technicians when preparing search or arrest warrants so that the device or devices can be accurately described. Warrants for initial search and entry were not deemed necessary in this case due to the exigent circumstances resulting from visible dangers, and later, the information from the shooter. Key findings. Response to the Paris Street incident was exemplary in its use of unified incident command. The police and fire departments, bomb squad personnel from local, state, and federal agencies, and even the Public Works Department collaborated throughout. The Paris Street part of the incident took place over a 2-day period, which made ICS more practical than at the theater, where command and control needs unfolded in minutes. The APD did an excellent job in evacuating residents and establishing a security perimeter. The AFD played a critical role in setting up resources to handle potential explosions or fires. The AFD also provided a bucket truck used to see into the apartment and helped with logistics. The APD commanders made excellent rapid decisions to bring in the local bomb squads with whom they trained, and to reach out to the FBI and ATF. The FBI did an outstanding job in assisting in the IED analysis and then acting as the lead in rendering safe the devices, which were highly complex. Robots again proved their importance to avoid unnecessary risk for public safety officials. Televising high-resolution pictures from the robots to remote experts was invaluable, as was their use in retrieving evidence safely. Recommendations. 1. Size of evacuation area. Make the size of the safe area match the threat. Ensure the area cleared around potential explosive or fire hazards is large enough to prevent injury to bystanders if a device explodes. A police supervisor at Paris Street said that before starting the rendering safe procedures of the explosive devices, they should have created a larger safe area around the suspect's apartment than they did initially. Eventually, they did expand the safe area. The basic rule is, do not move the device, move the people. 2. Bomb squad resources. Know the available bomb disposal resources. Every law enforcement agency needs to make sure they know who to call for bomb technician and render safe assistance should they encounter hazardous incendiary materials, explosives, or explosive devices beyond their in-house capability, or for second opinions and backup. Aurora knew whom to call immediately, and that was crucial to the success. Training with the bomb squads to be used is also essential. In the past, many jurisdictions relied on military assistance for explosive ordnance disposal. Under current bomb disposal and render safe procedures, military explosive ordnance disposal personnel are responsible only for the disposal of military ordnance. With the increase in the number of civilian, criminal, and terrorist uses of explosive devices, public safety bomb technicians now have the responsibility. For complex situations, the FBI and ATF are excellent resources. 3. Language interpretation. Plan for interpretation services in real time. There now are apps for smartphones and iPads, as well as telephone interpretation services to identify and translate a wide variety of foreign languages. Emergency responders should know how to access these services to facilitate evacuation and give instructions to non-English speakers. One can speak in English and get voice out in another language from a smartphone, and vice versa. Chapter 5. Emergency medical services. The AFD has responsibility for organization and oversight of emergency medical services within the city, and for providing EMS first response. They also oversee the privately contracted ambulance service run by Rural Metro Ambulance. This chapter discusses how they face the challenges of the incident, including triage, treatment, and transportation. We also discuss the coordination with hospitals, their preparedness, and the unexpectedly key role police played in EMS in this incident. Casualty count. At least 82 theater patrons were injured in the incident, 70% by gunshot, of whom 12 died. The non-gunshot injuries to 12 patrons were incurred while escaping the theater or near it, and some of those non-gunshot injuries required surgery. 10 of the 12 fatalities were pronounced dead at the scene, 2 others at hospital emergency departments. One of the 2 pronounced at hospitals was dead on arrival, and the other pronounced after a short resuscitation attempt. The attending paramedics, the 3 EMS medical directors for the fire department and ambulance contractor, and the hospital medical staffs all concurred that the 2 patients who died had non-recoverable injuries. No one died who could have been saved by EMS actions. In addition to physical injuries, many people at the theater, their family and friends, and first responders suffered psychological trauma, which will be discussed in Chapter 9, dealing with the aftermath. Many fire and police first responders made excellent, sometimes unconventional emergency medical decisions that saved lives. The victim survival rate indicates that the Aurora EMS system worked well overall. The 70 gunshot wounds would stress any EMS system, even in larger cities. There were, however, some major system problems that should be addressed before another incident occurs. Aurora already has made good progress toward improving its multi-agency response to future mass casualty incidents based on the lessons learned from this one. Aurora EMS system. As noted in Chapter Y, the City of Aurora EMS system provides all levels of emergency medical care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Out-of-hospital care is provided by a tiered response system, with the first tier provided by Aurora Fire Department paramedics and emergency medical technicians. Rural Metro under contract provides continued paramedic care and patient transportation. First response is augmented by the APD, whose officers have some basic EMS training. A few police officers are certified paramedics or emergency medical technicians, one of whom played a critical role. Aurora Fire Department usually provides incident command for EMS incidents. Rural Metro Ambulance is often part of the incident command process, as designated by the incident commander. All EMS responders are trained in incident command, with supervisory personnel trained at higher levels. Patient care is under the control of an AFD paramedic until the patient is turned over to Rural Metro for transport to a hospital. For critical patients, the AFD paramedic often accompanies the patient to the hospital. Hospitals in the city and surrounding areas provide the next tier of emergency care. Most of the theater victims were treated at the Medical Center of Aurora, a Level 2 trauma facility that was the closest hospital to the incident, and the University of Colorado Medical Center, a Level 2 trauma facility. The Children's Hospital Colorado, a Level I pediatric trauma center, took in several adult victims, and some other hospitals in Denver and the surrounding communities provided care for a few. Overview of EMS during the incident. The mass casualty incident began at 12:38 a.m. when the communications center received the first call of a shooting at the theater and immediately dispatched Aurora police, followed by AFD and RMA units. The first arriving fire and EMS units found a chaotic scene. with a large number of injured and uninjured theatergoers fleeing the theater on foot, civilian vehicles trying to leave, police cars blocking parking lot road access, and uncertainty as to whether the theater was reasonably safe for rescuers to enter. 15 shows the mass of people outside the theater. 15. View of scene outside theater. Aurora Fire Department officials initiated incident command, and firefighters started to triage and treat patrons. Fire officers divided the incident into 3 ICS divisions: East Division, which covered Theater 9, Century Division, which covered the area north of the theater, and Dillard's Division, which covered the area west of the theater. An APD SWAT paramedic was one of the initial officers to enter the theater and switched from his police role to performing triage in the theater. He determined that 10 moviegoers were obviously deceased, and 9 others were alive but critically injured. The living victims were quickly carried out of the theater by police and treated outside the door or somewhat further away by firefighters and triage and treatment units. Many of the 1,200 moviegoers exiting the theater ran toward the location where Century Division was set up. AFD and RMA personnel began to triage and treat casualties there. Some shooting victims walked to this area, others were carried. The Century Division triaged and treated approximately 25 victims, many of whom were severely injured. Fire, EMS, and police personnel sequestered uninjured patients for their protection and to determine if any perpetrators were in the crowd. Conditions were similar to Dillard's Division, where victims who exited the west side of the theater had started to collect. Dillard's Division triaged and treated at least 7 critical patients, several urgent cases, and many with minor or no injuries. Patients needing transportation were carried to awaiting ambulances in Dillard's staging area. At the Century and Dillard's divisions, some moviegoers who assisted injured people were themselves bloodstained and appeared injured, increasing the numbers needing triage. 2 significant challenges inhibited patient transport. First was confusion as to whether ambulances were to stage or proceed into the scene. Second was that ambulance access was limited by parked police cars from the initial wave of officers going after an active shooter, and moviegoers trying to leave in their cars. At various times and locations outside the theater, police officers and firefighters decided that critically injured patients needed to be transported by police car when ambulances could not or did not know how to get close enough, according to the medical staff who treated them. These transport decisions saved the lives of at least 2 victims who had been shot in their thoraco-abdominal cavities. Necessary transports to hospitals were completed for all victims within 52 minutes of the first 911 call. While the outcomes of the EMS and hospitals' actions were excellent, the system could have worked better. The outcomes might not have been as favorable if it weren't for some luck as well as out-of-the-box thinking. The sections below discuss the events and challenges in more detail. The analysis is based on radio transmissions and interviews with first responders and hospital staff. One would not get an accurate picture from radio transmissions alone because many decisions and orders were not transmitted. Initial EMS dispatches and transports. At 12:40:49, 2 minutes after the first call to 911, RMA operations dispatched ambulance RMA 109. At virtually the same time, 12:40:57, AFD paramedic engine and battalion chief were dispatched. After dispatch received several more calls, a 911 operator advised the dispatcher that this was a mass casualty incident shooting and additional ambulances would be needed. At 12:42:26, 4 minutes after the first call to 911, dispatch advised paramedic engine 8, battalion chief 1, and RMA 109 that police are requesting them at Expo and Sable. Almost simultaneously, RMA dispatch called Aurora dispatch to ask if an additional ambulance was needed and were advised yes, send a second ambulance. RMA personnel told us that several RMA units were ordered by police to stage as they arrived. These were face-to-face orders. At 12:42:59, Aurora dispatch advised paramedic engine 8, battalion chief 1, and RMA 109 to report to the front of the theater for a shooting victim. At 12:43:12, RMA 109 arrived and reported they were staging. At 12:43:20, paramedic engine 8 asked for truck 8 to be dispatched, and it was. At 12:45:39, 7 minutes into the incident, Aurora dispatch confirmed with battalion chief 1 that APD requested fire and EMS units to stage in the west parking lot, and that 3 or 4 additional ambulances were needed. The dispatcher asked if the battalion chief needed additional resources. At 12:47:16, 9 minutes into the incident, a police sergeant notified dispatch that patients needed to be transported by police car to the ambulances at the west end of the lot. It was unclear whether the decision was primarily motivated by the inability to get ambulances closer, or that the scene was considered still too unsafe to allow fire and EMS to go near the theater. L25 had asked for all responding ambulances to go to the west parking lot. The initial idea was to bring the patients to the ambulances. When it became clear that the ambulances could not get to the west end, Metro and L25 decided at 12:54:27 to have police cars do transports directly to the hospital. Triage in the theater. As discussed earlier, the triage in the theater was undertaken by a police SWAT team paramedic, who happened to be among the first wave of police officers reaching to the theater fire, and EMS personnel did not enter the theater immediately. The reliance on the APD to conduct initial triage inside the theater raised some questions. Did having APD personnel perform triage slow any other police functions? Would a larger number of paramedics have improved initial triage? Were any patients misclassified? The answers to all of these questions is no. Had the shooter still been actively shooting in the theater, there were enough officers inside and outside the building to handle that threat. One officer working as a paramedic would not have made a difference. The APD SWAT paramedic in the theater responded initially as a police officer, but when it was clear that there were enough officers and triage was urgently needed, he switched roles and began to rapidly assess patients. He quickly realized that there were several obvious deaths and several critical patients. Most public safety officials agree that using police officers to perform mass casualty incident triage is often avoided. In this case, it was critically important. A qualified police paramedic quickly, but properly provided triage using accepted medical practice. Additional rescuers were not placed at risk due to violence, unidentified chemical intoxicants, or unrecognized shooters. Most law enforcement agencies do not have the luxury of having a paramedic available to conduct triage within environments of imminent threat to public safety. However, while desirable, there's little evidence to suggest that paramedic providers are superior to EMTs, or police first responders in conducting initial triage. With time-tested triage methods including START, jump start, or other recognized methods, law enforcement officers should be able to conduct basic triage in hazardous environments. Some theorize that basic providers might even be superior to advanced providers in providing initial triage, because without having training for treatment, they are more likely to limit their assessment to the basics of alive or deceased. In this instance, the initial triage group leader, a police officer, quickly determined who was alive and should be moved, and who was obviously deceased. Additional paramedics and EMTs were far more effective by assignment to treatment units. Evidence indicates that patients were appropriately classified in triage. Some victims were highly bloodied but not severely injured. Even the most experienced EMS providers can misclassify patients with these presentations as critical until proven otherwise. Patients are usually triaged again when they enter a treatment unit. In the theater, no patient was under triaged, meaning no one was triaged as deceased who was alive. Despite some horrendous injuries, patients were not misclassified. Patients in Theater 9 triaged as deceased were left in place. Live patients triaged as immediate were removed to a safe treatment unit area behind the theater. Many mobile patients self-evacuated from the theater. Incident Command for EMS, National Incident Management System, and the Incident Command System are effective for managing incidents with an EMS component. The Aurora Theater incident warranted a large medical operation under ICS, known as a multi-casualty branch, but did not have one. A multi-casualty branch director would report to the operations section chief, and would be responsible for all patient care and transportation of civilian casualties. During large-scale incidents, this branch is divided into 3 basic functions: triage, treatment, and transportation. There can be several triage and treatment groups, but only one transportation group. The first arriving fire unit, Paramedic Engine 8, established Fire Incident Command at 12:46:55. At 12:47:52, APD Gang 8 advised that entry was being made into Theater 9. Seconds later, Metro 10 advised that rescue was needed in the theater. This was the first notification by police that fire or EMS personnel should enter the theater. Simultaneously, APD was requesting medical assistance at various locations where many injured people were carried or evacuated on their own from the theater. At 12:55, 11 hours, 16 minutes into the incident, APD Gang reported that all other theaters were clear. Establishment of ICS DIVISIO NS13. By 12:55:21, 16 minutes into the incident, Battalion Chief the First had arrived and took over fire command from the engine company lieutenant. BC1 was a fire captain acting that day as battalion chief, and would remain the fire incident commander for the key part of the incident. He set up 3 divisions: the East Division behind the theater, the Sentry Division in front of the theater in a parking lot, and the Dillard's Division in the parking lot near Dillard's. Engine 4 was assigned as supervisor of Dillard's Division, Engine 5 as the supervisor of East Division, and Engine 8 as supervisor of Sentry Division. All EMS units not yet on scene were ordered to staging. At 10:17, Battalion Chief 1 ordered Dillard's Division to set up an extrication, triage, treatment, and transportation group. At 1:03:37, Truck 2 advised that there were 9 patients behind the theater. Engine 5 was also requested by police to assist. Battalion Chief 1 advised Engine 5 to join Truck 2, and for Truck 2 to supervise Sable Division. At 10:57, now 25 minutes into the incident, Battalion Chief 1 changed his designation to Aurora Mall Command. Police Incident Commander Lincoln 25 requested a face-to-face meeting at that time, and Chief was at his fire station and had not yet been dispatched, 25 minutes into the incident. By this time, many patients were being treated and transported by police cars. Within each division was a medical group responsible for extrication, triage, and treatment. Triage is the process of identifying, sorting, and prioritizing the sick and injured to determine who should be treated and in which order. The overall goal of triage during a mass casualty incident is to do the greatest good for the greatest number. This includes determining treatment based on chances for survival and availability of resources. There were 3 strategically located triage units in the area around the theater. Fire and police personnel efficiently performed triage. About 100 people had some level of assessment and treatment, including minor injuries and non-gunshot injuries. Some of the non-gunshot injuries were transported to hospitals. Some with shotgun pellet wounds were not transported, having likely refused service. Unified Command at 1:28:11, almost an hour into the incident, Chief 7 established fire liaison with police, which eventually evolved into a version of Unified Command after most transports had already been made. Even at this time, there were still significant issues in getting ambulances close to patients. Dispatch requested all available ambulances from the Denver metro area, which was a questionable action because most patients already had been transported. Ambulance access. Considerable confusion arose about ambulance access to victims during the incident. Most fire and EMS providers were unsure how close they should get to the scene. One EMS provider said that the police officers they encountered would not grant them access to the scene and ordered them to staging. Conversely, RM-103's crew reported that APD advised them not to stage, and so they reported to the Sentry parking lot. Originally, fire units were ordered by police command to stage, but then Battalion Chief 1 and APD units started calling them to the incident. Communications logs do not show any announcement ever made by police command, fire command, or dispatch to the effect that the scene was safe for fire and EMS entry. The confusion over ambulance access and the reasons for it led to significant post-incident tensions between police and fire personnel. It is common for fire and EMS units to report to staging until they receive an assignment, especially in an incident involving violence. Differ from fire departments because police are trained and equipped to enter hostile environments and are charged with rendering them safe. In this instance, the district police station was close to the incident. Shift change was in progress, and a large number of officers and police cars were called to the scene. Police cars proceeded directly into the scene, leaving their vehicles to go after the active shooter. Combined with civilian vehicles trying to flee the parking lots, this led to traffic chaos and limited access for the ambulances and fire vehicles trying to get near the theater. Lincoln 41, who essentially was the operations section chief in this incident, recognized the congestion problem and had police cars moved from the entrance. At 12:59:20, Lincoln 41 also requested on PD3 that rescue should be advised that officers will be available for security. Dispatch sent this message to Fire Command. As noted earlier, neither police nor Fire Command provided a general message to all providers that the rear of the theater was safe to enter. To summarize, the radio traffic in our interviews indicated that there were several major challenges to ambulance access. There was no clear message that the scene was safe for EMS providers to enter the theater or even come near it. There was a question as to the existence of explosives or hazardous materials in and near the theater. Police cars and civilian traffic were blocking access to the theater. There was a traffic jam. Police did not communicate to fire and EMS units how to get through the parking lot maze to reach victims, nor did police attempt to lead fire units to victims using the paths that some police vehicles had found. The police thought fire could figure this out on their own. Conversely, the fire department did not ask for instructions. In one instance, a police officer tried to lead an ambulance crew on foot, but they refused to follow. Police would not allow ambulance RM-109 to proceed past the staging area. The police did not have a consistent message as to whether fire and EMS units should or should not proceed close in. Different officers conveyed different message. For many seriously wounded victims, it did not seem wise to wait further for ambulances to get through, or to spend time walking stretchers long distances from ambulances to victims and back again. Police and fire personnel were concerned about the elapsed time that patients triaged as red were going without transport to a hospital. For these reasons, police, fire, and EMS providers turned to alternative transport plans use of police vehicles. Some police vehicles made multiple transports to area hospitals, returning for more victims. Figure 16 shows the access and egress route that police use to transport patients. Figure 16. Police car access and egress. Scene safety during and after the incident. There has been controversy over whether fire and EMS personnel should have entered the theater and should have gotten closer to the victims outside the theater. The police paramedic was already in the theater and had performed a timely triage, so it was not really necessary for fire EMS personnel to enter the theater. However, it is still important to discuss when it is safe for EMS personnel to enter a warm zone, and how much risk fire should be taking in an unclear shooting situation. Next time, there may not be the luck to have a police paramedic in the right place at the right time. 19 AFD. Century Theater shooting, Aurora Fire Department preliminary incident analysis. P. The issue outside the theater was more access through crowded parking lot lanes than safety, though resources in the area immediately outside the theater were pushed back by police at one point for fear of explosive devices. It was unclear as to how dangerous the environment was for rescue personnel. The perceived risk level varied and was never totally clarified from the fire and EMS perspective. As noted previously, it was not known whether there were additional shooters, if secondary devices were present, or if there was a harmful toxic substance release. Moreover, fire was not told immediately that a shooter had been arrested. Table 1 lists a sample of transmissions from dispatch to police, fire, and EMS that concern EMS units making entrance into or around the theater. Listening to these transmissions, it was no wonder that police, fire, and EMS personnel grew frustrated and remained unsure of what was going on and what they were supposed to do. Table 1. Radio traffic concerning entry risk. Having to use dispatch as a relay between police, fire, and EMS caused delays in communicating between on-scene units. There was confusion as to where ambulances should stage. For example, Lincoln 25 requested units to Dillard's, while Battalion Chief 1 assigned them to Expo and Sable. During interviews, 2 RMA crews said the police held them at Expo and Sable, while 1 crew stated they were not held. There was never a clear message announced by police or fire command via dispatch that the scene or sections of the scene were safe. At some point, APD advised dispatch that ambulances could come to the theater and security would be provided. Within 37 seconds, dispatch relayed the message to fire command. Transportation group was not established early in the incident, causing APD to attempt to organize transportation and hospital status information on its own. Battalion Chief, I was inundated with multiple repeated requests without sufficient time to accomplish them. EMS personnel believe they face an extremely unsafe situation. A confirmed active shooter, possible additional shooters, a chemical release, the possibility of secondary devices or chemicals, and panic conditions created a situation that appeared to resemble a battlefield instead of a civilian mass casualty incident. Law enforcement dealing with the aftermath. Mass shootings leave significant psychological as well as physical wounds. These tragedies.
Sorry, guys. It's just this document is really long, and I figured you guys wouldn't want to go through the whole EMS because it's the same thing, just it over and over again. I will go through after we get off of here and link this document in the description, or like where I downloaded it from at least, so you guys can check it out yourselves if you guys are interested in that. We will touch a little bit on the aftermath because the aftermath is roughly 20-ish pages long. And then we will go into the bomb squad video, but the bomb squad video is short, only 2 minutes long. So we will finish out strong here with the aftermath. We'll skip through some of it, and then we will move on to the bomb squad video, and we'll close. I really appreciate all of you guys for hanging out and staying despite the lengthy court documents, and I understand that it can be a little bit tedious sometimes, but I really do appreciate all of you. I know that Mama does too. And again, if there's any cases that you guys are interested in that you want me or Mama to look into, we can definitely do that. And if you guys are interested in the whole maybe getting on here, or Mama was talking about maybe creating a Discord server and we could hop in and research together if you guys are interested in that. Just, let us know. And we are totally open to doing anything that you guys are interested in. But here's the aftermath.
Mass shootings leave significant psychological as well as Mass shootings leave significant psychological as well as physical wounds. These tragedies are a complicated and ongoing issue for the communities where they occur. In Aurora, the murders traumatized families and friends of the deceased, injured victims, other people in the theater, first responders, city employees, media personnel, and people in the community at large. This chapter describes how Aurora served the needs of these individuals. Overall, the city did an exemplary job in helping victims and promoting community healing. We have provided a detailed discussion because several of Aurora's services to victims provide textbook examples that deserve national attention. Victim Services Unit. The APD is home to the city's Victim Services Unit, consisting of 7 full-time employees who provide services to crime victims and their families. Most victim assistance programs are developed in accordance with state standards and standards established by the Office of Justice Programs, U.S. Department of Justice. Services include crisis intervention, counseling, advocacy, case management, accompaniment to court, financial support, and referral to other resources. Homicide survivors or co-victims often need specialized resources as they face potential long-term psychological impacts and social challenges. They may also have other impacts, including loss of income and medical expenses. Services provided after the shooting. Aurora's victim advocates provided a range of services over the course of the first days after the shooting, and then into the weeks and months which followed. Advocates conducted ongoing needs assessments for each victim. Early in the situation, they helped with transportation and hotel reservations. They provided emotional support and assisted victims and families of victims in making calls. They accompanied victims and families during the prayer vigil that was held on Sunday, July 22. Later, the advocates explained the court process to victims' families and accompanied victims and families who elected to be present during court proceedings of the accused. A detective was assigned to help handle returns of personal items and, in conjunction with the district attorney's office, determine what could and could not be released. The advocates checked in with the families of the deceased and those who were injured at key times during the following year, such as after the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School and on the one-year anniversary of the theater shooting. Advocates contacted the families and victims to let them know what Aurora was planning for the anniversary service and asked them what they wanted to have included. Victim advocates from other agencies. Within a few days of the incident, 2 other organizations became directly involved in a range of services for the families of the deceased and for the injured victims: the Colorado Organization for Victim Assistance and the Arapahoe County District Attorney's Office Victim Witness Coordinator. The situation became complicated with the multiplicity of advocates and case managers, and the different views on who was in charge and what their role should be. There was the APD Victim Assistance Office staff, the volunteer advocates that APD had mobilized and used COVA, and finally, the DA's coordinator. A meeting that was to have initiated a long-term resource plan was overtaken by responding to immediate needs, so the respective roles of these groups and how they should coordinate services was never clarified. The question of who was charged of what aspects of victim and family assistance was not well defined, and this created problems. Some of the victims' families were confused when the district attorney's office, or COVA, stepped in with a different advocate. One victim complained that she wound up with 3 different advocates, though the services of all the advocates were appreciated. The DA's office, understandably focused on their case, nevertheless overplayed their role with victims by assuming a degree of exclusivity as advocates. In terms of communicating with victim families and witnesses about the trial process and testifying, it was logical for that office to be the lead. However, advising victims to cease working with their APD advocates and instead deal with the DA's coordinator for all follow-up matters was insensitive both to the victims and to the advocates who had been in the trenches with the victims from the beginning. Taking that position also was unnecessary. The police-based advocates had more experience serving the needs of victims and providing counseling and support, and they were the ones who were the legitimate leaders for most of the established services. The district attorney's office maintained they needed to control victim community family reunification center. The victim services supervisor learned that Gateway High School was designated as the site where witnesses, theater employees, and others would be taken for interviews. Death notifications. Slowly, people who had assembled at Gateway High School for interviews or to be reunited with friends and family began to leave as relatives were accounted for. By early afternoon of the day of the incident, approximately 100 people still remained at the school. The group included 10 families and friends who were waiting for news. They were briefed periodically about the status of the investigation and the process for identifying the deceased. Each time a meeting was convened at Gateway, they prepared themselves for the official announcement. They became emotionally drained as the day wore on, and each announcement fell short of the only information they truly wanted. All they were told was that crime scene investigators and staff from the coroner's office had to proceed carefully to preserve evidence. Another meeting was held at 4 p.m., but positive identifications still were not available. Positive identification generally relies on fingerprints, DNA samples, or dental records. Police Chief Oates explained to the families that positive identification takes time because it was important that nothing be done to compromise the case, and that confirmation was not expected until 8 or 9 p.m. Many families became angry, and some decided to go home. At 6:45 p.m., the coroner authorized disclosure of the identities of the deceased. A 7 p.m. press conference was getting underway, which caused a delay in releasing the names. After the press conference, victim services advocates, along with a police officer, broke the news to the families who had remained at the school. Officers and advocates also went to the homes of the families who already had left the school. Gateway High School closed as the reunification center at about 11 p.m. The police lieutenant conducted a complete walkthrough to check the school before closing it. Media management. While the majority of media representatives were staged near the Century 16 theater crime scene, the Gateway High School became a secondary site of media interest. Originally, the media were staged on the grassy area behind the school as they arrived, but throughout the early hours of that morning, media representatives gravitated closer to the school and approached some witnesses and families. When the police lieutenant relieved the captain at the school at about 9:15 a.m., he taped off the school parking lot and moved the media back to the original staging area. The superintendent of schools reported to police that the media was interfering with victims and families at the school, and the lieutenant advised the media they would be removed from the property if they strayed back to the entrance or into the school. The lieutenant also locked the doors at the school. Part of the problem for the media at the school was that they were not directly getting the press information being given at the media staging area at the theater. However, all releases and information were posted on social media and the website. All media briefings were announced, and media had time to come to the briefings. PIOs, for victim families. The APD PO started to work with the victim services supervisor early in the incident. She met on Friday with victim advocate volunteers who were helping at the communication center and explained that calls from people with information about the shooting should be transferred to the APD. There also was discussion regarding how to protect victims and victims' families from intrusive calls from the media, the curious, and those with harmful intentions once the identities of the deceased were made public. The PIO proposed the innovative idea of assigning a PIO to each family of the deceased to protect them from unwanted communications and help them manage information about their loved one. The victim services supervisor approved this idea after checking with the district attorney's office. The new family PIO plan required obtaining more PIOs. The Aurora PO reached out to members of the Emergency Services Public Information Officers of Colorado and asked if any police department PIOs in the region would volunteer to help the victims. SBOC has over 100 members. PIOs volunteered from Broomfield Police, University of Colorado Boulder Police, Arvada Police, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, Town of Castle Rock, Adams County District Attorney's Office, the Colorado Office of Emergency Management, and Gilpin County Sheriff's Office. They were told that they would serve as a buffer between the media and families, but would not be spokespersons for the families. Since none of the volunteers were directly involved in the case, there would be a clear separation between this service to victims' families and the public information managed by Aurora. All 12 families of the deceased were offered the services of a PIO and 8 accepted. The Aurora PO met on Sunday, July 22, with the PO volunteers and Aurora's victim advocates to go over how the program would work and expectations. Also present at the meeting was the district attorney, who addressed the group with potential concerns, the Aurora Police Victim Advocate Supervisor, to discuss the sensitive nature of working with victims and their families, and the Deputy Chief of Police to express appreciation for everyone's assistance. They created a Gmail account with passwords and a Google Voice phone number. Office of the Coroner. This study included a review of the Arapahoe County Office of the Coroner's coordination with law enforcement and the release of information on the victims' identities, but not their technical forensic work. The coroner's office had 12 staff who were cross-trained as investigators. They have a good working relationship with the APD and were accustomed to working together. The coroner and several investigators are members of the area's disaster mortuary team. The coroner had experience handling multiple fatality situations, including 2 weeks serving in New York City after 9/11 and 2 more weeks helping after Hurricane Katrina. He is president of the new Coroner's Institution, which enhances training and consistency of coroner practices in north central Colorado, a 10-county region. Fingerprinting of victims, getting official identifications of the deceased was a top priority. Processing the scene and the remains of the deceased after a multiple fatality shooting usually is a long, painstaking process. The most expedient way to do it is through fingerprints. However, fingerprinting usually is one of the last steps completed at autopsies. Confirming identities through DNA takes even longer. Complicating the situation in Aurora was the fact that the suspect had told law enforcement officials that he had engineered multiple explosive booby traps at his apartment. So police had to proceed with extra caution in case any of the bodies also was booby-trapped. Criminalists from APD and investigators from the coroner's office processed the scene, including the remains. They had tremendous pressure from the families who wanted an immediate resolution confirming or denying their worst fears, and from those responsible for the overall investigation and prosecution, who needed painstakingly documented crime scene evidence to establish a solid case.
And that's where we're going to leave off on that document for tonight. I linked it in the description while we were listening to that final bit. So if you guys are interested in watching, or not watching, reading that, sorry. It is in the description. This is the bomb squad video of them entering the apartment, I believe.
The video is surreal. The robot moving through the front door of the apartment and showing investigators for the first time a morass of tripwires, blinking lights, and armed explosives, a deadly jigsaw puzzle that had to be disarmed.
Basically, what you want to do at that point is just try to identify everything you can.
Gary Smith is an ATF explosives enforcement officer who helped dismantle all the bombs.
His intent was to have law enforcement respond to a noise complaint at the apartment, enter the apartment, and trip the tripwire and set off the devices.
16 improvised explosive devices are homemade bombs that look like a cluster of black bowling balls connected with wire. They lay in the middle of the living room floor. Around them, also connected with wire and explosive charges, are 11 green plastic bottles with gasoline set to accelerate the huge explosion and fire that the killer had planned. The killer had also filled large glass jars with homemade napalm made of gasoline and melted styrofoam, and then filled them with .40 caliber bullets, which he hoped would begin exploding from the intense heat. The elaborate and complex explosive chain had 3 types of fusing systems. The robot showed investigators that the bombs had timed red and white fuses and were connected with clips to remote control receivers, which in turn were connected to a remote firing button. Devices were also connected to a remote control panel that could fire as many as 32 charges at a time.
You've got your toolbox for all your tools from all the training that you've done, and you just need to figure out what the problem is, figure out what the right tool is, and use it.
There was also a booby trap. Note the fishing line across the room that if tripped by police or a neighbor could have initiated the inferno. In addition, there were hundreds of rounds of rifle, shotgun, and pistol ammunition in the apartment that the killer clearly believed would discharge as the pyrotechnic accelerants began to ignite.
Absolutely crazy, right? I mean, it blows my mind going through some of these cases, because it's just, especially this one, there's just hardly any documents to go with the case. I mean, outside of the extensive after action report, I mean, it was very hard for me to find a lot of those documents. But I do greatly appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with me, and I know that Mama appreciates all of you too. and she does miss being on here with you guys. She's just been super, super busy, but hopefully she will be back on for an episode at some point. I might do another poll to see what you guys are feeling for the next episode. Unless you guys want to comment on this live and let me know. And like I said, if you guys want to do research together for a live stream, or if you are interested in the Discord server idea, I can definitely get that set up and we can work that out and do that. I think it would be super fun to research with you guys. But yeah, I had a good time hanging out with you guys. I appreciate all of you. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're not already. And I hope you all have a great night. Bye.